Hexes, Exes, and Daycare Disasters, Part 2, by Wynn Valentine. Copyright 2026 by Wynn Valentine. All rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced in any form or by any electronic or mechanical means, including information storage and retrieval systems, without written permission from the author, except for the use of brief quotations in a book review. Chapter 11. Hazel's house had 3 layers of wards, 2 armchairs, and no food suitable for seduction. She stood before the open freezer, while Cal leaned against the kitchen counter behind her. Cold air raised goose flesh along her forearms. The casserole in her hands bore a label in her own handwriting. Broccoli, rice, cheddar. 6 servings, reheat covered. It contains broccoli, she warned. Cal studied the label. Nothing says impulsive romance like brassica. You were promised dinner, not an experience. I've seen the rule binder. Everything with you is an experience. The word romance stayed in the kitchen after the joke passed. Hazel put the casserole in the oven and set a timer. Cal had changed out of his smoke-stained flannel at the daycare. The charcoal sweater he wore fit too well across his shoulders, a fact she blamed on textile manufacturing rather than personal attention. Tea? She asked. Do you have beer? Tea? Tea sounds great. The timer that had screamed earlier now sat unplugged, punished for magical interference. Hazel used a mechanical dial instead. You disciplined an appliance, Cal said. It accepted residual current without authorization. Reckless. Exactly. He opened the refrigerator. Can I help? Salad. Greens in the second drawer, dressing labeled Friday. Today is Saturday. Prepared Friday. Management anticipates cross-examination. They moved around each other in the narrow kitchen. Cal washed vegetables. Hazel set plates. Their bodies kept finding the same small floor space, each near collision turning domestic work into something charged. At the sink, Cal reached over her for a towel. Consent to relocation? You are moving a dish. It appeared to have boundaries. Hazel handed him the towel without turning. You are pleased with yourself. Foreseeably. Her house occupied the narrow second floor of a former sailmaker's shop. The ward seams ran along every baseboard and window frame, copper thread worked into old plaster. Cal noticed them because Cal noticed what held things up. 3 layers, he asked. Entry, fire, transformation. Do you expect the twins to visit your bedroom? Hazel nearly dropped the kettle. His eyes warmed with laughter. That was not intended to sound like that. Your head continues to need an editor. They ate at her narrow table, while rain began against the windows. Without children demanding attention, silence became aware of itself. Cal's knee touched hers. Neither moved. Hazel asked about his construction crew. Cal told her about Art Donnelly, who had owned the company for 32 years and retired with 1 day's notice because his wife bought train tickets west. He sent a group message that said, "Sold the saws, good luck," Cal said. That is not an offboarding process. There was cake. Store-bought, half-frozen. Barbaric. Cal asked about the crowded shelf. Each object came from a child. The purple wolf from Gus's sister, the clay moon from Mina, the paper crown from Bix, after Hazel approved his first afternoon blood pouch. Best rule which, he read. Conditional praise. Frame it. It sheds glitter. Some honors have costs. Hazel turned the crown in her hands. I keep every gift. I know. He touched his friendship bracelet. Their similarities were not obvious. She built shells for proof of attachment. He wore his until the threads frayed. Both pretended practicality explained it. He smiled. What about you? Always daycare? Hazel traced the rim of her water glass. My mother ran an informal nursery. I started helping when I was old enough to count. That is not an age credential. I know. The words came slowly. She told him about the Phoenix child, the failed fire charm, adults arguing in a smoke-filled room, about counting 4 children when the roster said 5, about finding little Howie Prentice inside a laundry cupboard, too scared to cry. Everyone was safe, she finished. People say that as if it erases the part where they almost weren't. Cal's hand turned palm up between them. Hazel placed hers in it. You made a place where nobody has to be the 14-year-old with the list, he said. Her throat tightened. That's the intention. Hazel. His thumb moved over her crescent scar. That's the result. She looked toward the rain-dark window. My mother believes I built Abracadabra to prove she was wrong. Did you? At first, the admission tasted less bitter than expected. I wanted a nursery with records for every child, and redundancy for every charm. I wanted no one to call carelessness creativity again. Then the children arrived. Then it became theirs, and yours. Directors are custodians. Cal studied her. You say that whenever ownership feels like wanting. Hazel pulled her hand back. You have worked for me 3 weeks. I learn quickly. Dangerous trait. You like dangerous things. I stood on a table because of spiders. Selective danger. She smiled despite herself. Sonia loved those children, Hazel said. That's the part that makes anger difficult. She was not indifferent. She was generous and funny and careless. The town remembers the first 2. You remember all 3. Someone has to. Remembering is not the same as carrying alone. The sentence settled beside the dishes. Cal did not offer easy forgiveness, or tell her Sonia meant well. He made room for contradictory facts. Hazel thought of Thursday's supervised visit, the broken tray, and her mother's quiet "I forgot." Perhaps people could be held accountable without being reduced to their worst day. Perhaps that was the standard Hazel wanted for herself too. What was your worst day? She asked. Cal's eyes shifted. The watch. The morning everyone already knew a cleaner version than the truth. You could have corrected them. I could. But shame feels private until you speak. Then it becomes a room anyone can enter. Hazel understood rooms and unwanted entry. She took his hand again. This room requires permission, she said. Cal's fingers closed around hers. Receiving kindness without editing it was beyond her skill set. She stood, walked around the table, and kissed him. Cal caught her waist, then stopped with his mouth a breath from hers. Tell me what you want. You. The answer frightened her less than its ease. Carefully, not because I think you'll hurt me, because I haven't done this in a while. His expression warmed and sharpened. Same. Can a bear shifter lie about that? Badly. The timer went off. They both looked toward the oven. Broccoli demands closure, Cal said. Hazel laughed against his mouth. They cleaned the kitchen because leaving food out attracted house sprites, then made it upstairs by stages, abandoning 1 cardigan, 2 socks, and a daycare spoon that fell from Hazel's boot. Cal picked it up. Clover has range. The ridiculousness dissolved the last of Hazel's nerves. In her bedroom, Cal asked before every new touch, until her answers became less formal and more urgent. His control was not distance. It was attention. When his eyes brightened with bare gold awareness, he told her what it meant. Heightened scent, protective instinct, the urge to hold, and waited. Hazel drew him closer. The intimacy was warm, rather than frantic. Laughter braided through desire. Cal's sighs required negotiation. Hazel's need for certainty required words. They gave each other both. Cal's fingertips traced her shoulder with a care that made Hazel feel studied rather than inspected. When she touched the scar across his palm, he said it came from pulling a packed child away from broken glass. You needed stitches. 11. And kept using the hand? The child was still scared. That is not medical reasoning. You cast through tremors. This is not about me. Excellent management argument. She kissed him to end the debate. His bare nature remained present without taking control. Warmer skin, sharpened gaze, a low sound when she pulled him close. He asked before holding her wrists, then released them when her breath changed. Hazel asked him to continue. Trust became physical without becoming silent. Afterward, Cal brought water and checked whether the ward flare from their combined magic caused pain. You know aftercare. Pack households teach practical skills, suspiciously broad. Hydration is universal. She lay with her cheek against his chest, while rain whispered over the roof. Sometime after midnight, Hazel woke to Cal standing beside the window in his jeans, one hand pressed to the copper ward thread. Moonlight silvered the broad line of his back. If you are testing my security naked, I charge a consulting fee, she said. He glanced over his shoulder, partially naked. The rate is the same. Something touched the outer ward. Hazel sat up. The magic carried no alarm, only the faint, indignant vibration of a boundary being investigated. She wrapped herself in the quilt and joined him. On the fire escape, a raccoon sat with both paws around Hazel's missing daycare spoon. Cal stared at it. Clover's network is extensive. Hazel opened the window 2 inches. That is municipal property. The raccoon put the spoon in its mouth and climbed down the drain pipe. "You negotiated from a weak position," Cal said. "I was ambushed." He drew the quilt around both of them. The ward settled. So did the room. Hazel rested her head against his shoulder and understood, with inconvenient certainty, that the frightening part was no longer inviting him into her bed, it was wanting him there tomorrow, when desire had to become breakfast and schedules and choices made in daylight. "Stay," she said. Cal's arms tightened around her. "I was hoping you'd ask." In the morning, he burned the first round of toast because Hazel kissed him against the refrigerator. The smoke charm sneezed blue sparks. They ate the second round, standing at the counter, while Cal wore a Best Rule Witch paper crown, and Hazel pretended not to be catastrophically happy. "Maribel cheated," he said quietly. Hazel lifted her head. He stared at the ceiling. "It lasted 8 months. I found out because I came home early and saw a man's watch beside our bed. She said it meant nothing, then said it meant I hadn't paid enough attention. I left." Hazel's anger arrived cleanly. "Everett?" she asked. "Yes." Cal described the months before discovery, Maribel guarding her phone, inventing reasons he was needy when he asked ordinary questions, praising him in public and withdrawing affection in private. His restraint made Hazel hear the damage clearly. She told Bellwether you did not want a family. His chest went still beneath her cheek. "Deacon told you?" "Town scraps. I wanted one. I wanted one with the woman I believed she was." Hazel lifted herself on one elbow. "Then why let that version stand?" "Because correcting it meant explaining why I had been foolish enough not to know. Being deceived is not stupidity. Deacon said the same. He is occasionally useful." Pain remained in Cal's eyes. Cal's phone rang on the nightstand. June Rusk's name lit the screen. He answered. June spake so loudly, Hazel heard every word. "Oren is a ladybug and I can't find him." Cal sat up. "When did he shift?" 6 minutes ago. Netta says he licked the windowsill. I have 3 ladybugs and no idea which one owes me rent." At June's harbor cottage, every light was on. Netta sat on the kitchen table wearing both twin sets of clothes in layers. 3 ladybugs occupied separate glasses with index cards over the rims. "One was on the sill," June said. "One came off my basil. One may be my son." "Tiny emergency," Netta announced. "Good reporting," Hazel said. Cal examined the insects. Identical red shells, black spots. Bear scent offered nothing. "What does Oren want after shifting?" "Food," June and Netta answered together. They placed an orange cracker crumb beneath each glass. 2 ladybugs ignored it. The third climbed toward the color. "Oren," Cal said. The ladybug opened its wings. Hazel slid the glass onto a clear tray and surrounded it with familiar clothing. Netta pointed. Bug walked. Oren licked. June closed her eyes. "I washed that glass 10 minutes earlier." "Living exposure can happen anywhere," Hazel said. "The goal must be self-reporting, not impossible elimination." June looked at her. "You make terrible things sound survivable." Oren returned human and ate 4 crackers while wrapped in a dish towel. Cal added window screens to June's project list. Hazel added a home response card. Netta added a drawing labeled Oren Maybe. Hazel was already reaching for her clothes. They spent 40 minutes at June's house, identifying Oren through his attraction to orange crackers. By the time they returned, midnight had passed. Cal kissed Hazel at her door, rather than assuming the evening would resume. The old history no longer contained a paternity question. Cal had answered that before dinner, and Hazel believed him. What remained unsaid was present tense, why Maribel still had enough power over him to send him toward cupboards. Morning arrived with Clover's stolen spoon on the nightstand, and no time for anything but daycare. Hazel dressed while Cal made coffee downstairs. She knew Maribel had cheated. She knew Cal had wanted a family. She knew both children were Everett's and had been born after Cal left. What she did not know was that Maribel had begun threatening to turn those settled facts into a public lie. The emergency explained one interruption. Cal's failure to warn her would be a choice. At the door, Cal held out her travel mug. "Tonight," he said. "Tonight." He kissed her forehead. The tenderness nearly persuaded Hazel to call in sick to her own daycare. Then her phone announced a parent message. "Clover has hidden all breakfast spoons." Hazel took the mug. Duty. Romance never stood a chance. Romance can wait until utensils are restored. Chapter 12.
For 4 days, Cal and Hazel were happy in secret. It was not convincing secrecy. Hazel revised a rule sheet to say large caregiver instead of bear shifter employee and blushed at the printer. Cal whistled while sanitizing blocks. Deacon passed cinnamon knots through the kitchen hatch and asked whether workplace morale required extra glaze. Bix watched them over his cup. Management is fraternizing. Management is disinfecting, Hazel said, with longing. Cal inhaled cleanser fumes and spent 30 seconds coughing over the sink. Hazel pointed at Bix with the spray bottle. Your juice contains beet concentrate. That is not responsive. It is red and you are wearing white. Bix moved the cup 6 inches away. Management has redirected the inquiry. Across the room, Netta and Oren were licking plastic insects from the sensory bin. Those are inanimate, Cal called. Oren removed a rubber centipede from his mouth. Practicing. Practice with flashcards. Netta held up a card depicting a beetle, considered it, and opened her mouth. Visually, Hazel said. Cal caught Hazel's eye. Their shared laugh felt more intimate than it had any right to while he wore yellow dish gloves. They had agreed on 3 rules that morning. No affection in front of children. No altered workplace decisions. No secrets that affected daycare safety. Cal had agreed to the third too quickly. Their first actual date happened on Thursday after closing. Hazel chose a restaurant with posted allergen practices and exits visible from every table. Cal chose the harbor walk afterward, where no spreadsheet could improve the moonlight on the water. They bought coffee from a cart and watched boats move beyond the breakwater. The harbor wind carried salt, diesel, and the sugar crust from Deacon's Bakery 2 streets inland. Cal could separate each scent now that he was not fighting smoker fear. Hazel's was hardest to name. Rosemary soap, old paper, and the mineral brightness of magic gathering before a spell. She had changed into a green sweater and ankle boots. The crescent scar on her thumb showed whenever she lifted her cup. You keep looking at me, she said. Date behavior. Is there a handbook? Yes, I ate it. Her laugh startled a gull off the railing. The gull shouted what sounded like an obscenity and wheeled over the water. That creature has filed a complaint, Hazel said. Management will redirect. They walked until the lamps came on. Hazel stopped at a bench dedicated to a sea witch named Prudence Whale, who had apparently saved 12 fishermen and permanently cursed 3 tax collectors. Balanced public service, Cal said. The town council disputed the plaque for 6 years. Over the fishermen, the number of tax collectors. She sat, leaving enough room for caution. Cal sat close enough to make it irrelevant. Hazel asked. Only during budget meetings. Seasonal appetite? Yes. Aggression? Not the way movies suggest. Territorial behavior? Cal looked at her. Are you conducting romantic due diligence? I am curious. That might be the nicest thing you've said to me. Hazel bumped his shoulder. He told her his bear was not a separate person, but a different arrangement of the same instincts. Smell became language. Space mattered. Protection could feel physically urgent, especially around children or a partner. Does that frighten you? He asked. Should it? No. Then no. You should know there are limits, Cal said. If I am frightened enough, my control gets harder. Not gone, harder. I need space to shift safely. What triggers it? Threats to pack, fire, sometimes the smell of blood. And jealousy? Makes me want to split firewood. That seems productive. There are towns where I'm responsible for suspiciously small forests. Hazel rested her hand on his thigh. I don't need you harmless, Cal. I need you honest about what the danger is. The words struck directly at what he had not told her. Not the affair. Hazel knew that now. The danger was present. Maribel had started pressing at the old lie again, and Cal had not warned Hazel that she might drag it into the daycare. Instead, he covered Hazel's hand with his. I can do that, he said. His bear shifted uneasily beneath the promise. On the walk back, they shared a paper cone of fried dough. Hazel got powdered sugar on her nose. Cal wiped it away with his thumb, then kissed her beneath a street lamp, while the tax collector's memorial plaque glinted behind them. A passing sulky teenager wolf whistled. Hazel stepped back. The town has no boundaries. The town is 16 and wearing 1 shoe. Still. Cal laughed, but the public nature of the kiss followed him home. It was the direct trust he had wanted from her. The fact that he still had not mentioned Maribel's renewed pressure sat like grit beneath it. The next morning, Tansy sat beside him building a block harbor. Her fox ears were hidden. She placed a red block atop a blue one and frowned at the balance. "Mama says you belong to us." Cal set down the toy boat. "Your mama and I knew each other a long time ago. Before Everett? Before your dad married her, yes. She says our family had the wrong ending." Anger stirred his bear. He kept his voice gentle. "Grown-ups can want stories to end different ways. That doesn't make people in the story belong to them." Tansy considered this. "Blocks don't belong in mouths." Excellent pivot. Oren froze across the room, a red block halfway to his lips. Cal held out his hand. Oren surrendered the block with the solemnity of a knight relinquishing a sword. "Only living creatures," Cal reminded him, "and only during supervised nature lessons." Ladybug was supervised. "By whom?" Oren pointed to Netta. Netta nodded. "Me. Someone whose bedtime you do not share." Both twins frowned at the impossible standard. Tansy pushed the toy boat through the harbor. "Mama says you used to want babies." Cal felt the block edges bite into his palm. "I did. I still might someday." Because her mother had chosen her father before admitting she had stopped choosing Cal. Because adults could make a child feel like disputed territory with one careless sentence. "Families aren't orders at Deacon's," he said. "You don't pick a shape and have somebody put it in a box. Yours grew with Everett. He is your dad." Tansy pressed 2 blue blocks around the red one. "He makes fox pancakes. Then he has earned the title." The ears look like triangles. Most ears do when made of pancakes. She accepted this and added a bridge. From the office doorway, Hazel watched him. Pride warmed her face, but concern lived beside it. She had heard enough to know a question existed, and not enough to know its shape. Cal promised himself he would tell her after pickup. At pickup, Everett arrived alone. He watched Tansy show Cal the block harbor. "Maribel tells the picnic story differently," Everett said. Cal glanced toward Tansy. "She was scared. I helped." "I know." Everett's fingers tightened around the backpack strap. Cal waited. Everett looked toward the office, where Hazel reviewed invoices. "I know you aren't trying to interfere with my children." "I'm not. I also know Maribel dislikes closed doors." There was a whole conversation inside those careful sentences. Cal could have asked Everett to say it publicly. He could have told Hazel the rest right then. Instead, Tansy handed her father a block, and the moment narrowed around protecting her. "She shouldn't hear any of this," Cal said. "Agreed." Everett's tired smile held gratitude. "For what it's worth, they're mine. Both of them. There has never been a question for me." Hazel's printer started in the office, covering his last sentence. "Then why let her imply otherwise?" Cal asked. Everett's jaw tightened. "Because when I challenge her in public, she says I'm jealous of you. When I challenge her in private, she says I'm controlling. And because my children hear more than she thinks. They hear everything. I know." Everett stared at the block in his hand. "Tansy asked me last night whether fathers can be returned." Cal's anger became very quiet. "I will not play along," he said. "Good, but I won't turn her into evidence against her mother." Everett finally met his eyes. They had barely known each other before the affair, but shame and parenthood had given them a grim fluency. "That's why I came alone. If she makes the claim publicly, correct it publicly." "I will." Everett looked toward the office. "Will you?" Cal understood the question beneath the question. Would he finally explain why he had left? Would he stop letting silence write testimony for him? "Yes," he said, and wanted the answer to become true before courage had another chance to negotiate. Everett left. Cal watched his car turn the corner. Tansy had run back for her paper fox, closing the only moment in which he might have asked why Everett had let Maribel's public version stand. Protecting the children had become a habit all 3 adults used to avoid confronting one another. Maribel arrived 10 minutes later without the children. Cal met her outside the gate. "Stop talking to Tansy about us," he said. Maribel crossed her arms. "She asks why you hide. Tell her the truth. We dated, you cheated, I left. Everett is her father. You always make it sound ugly. It was ugly." Rain ticked against the daycare awning. Through the front window, Hazel crossed from the office to the cubbies, gathering abandoned mittens into a basket. Cal kept his body between Maribel and the glass. "You don't get to come here without Tansy," he said. "Pickup is not an excuse to corner staff." "Staff," Her mouth twisted. Is that what you are to her? What I am to Hazel is none of your business. You made me your business for 5 years, and you made Everett your business for 8 months of them. Maribel flinched, then glanced toward the street as though even an empty sidewalk might judge her. That reflex had once kept Cal silent. He had believed telling the truth would destroy everyone around them. Silence had merely allowed Maribel to choose which version survived. Everett knows what happened, she said. He knows the version you gave him. He married me. That is not evidence that I owe you anything. Her fox magic stirred. For a second her pupils narrowed and russet fur shimmered at her temples. You owe me for disappearing. I left a relationship after you cheated. I didn't disappear. I stopped volunteering for punishment. The daycare bell chimed behind him. Cal looked back instinctively. Maribel smiled because she had made him look. You loved me. Past tense is doing hard work in that sentence. Her fox scent sharpened. You think that witch wants you after she learns how easy you were to replace? The old shame found its familiar seat beneath his ribs. This isn't about Hazel. Everything is now. Maribel touched her pin. Maybe I'll tell everyone. The children are yours. You always loved playing rescuer. No one would believe that. She smiled. Cal remembered every cupboard. Belief did not require evidence when behavior volunteered to impersonate it. If you say that, he told her, you hurt Everett and both children before you hurt me. Then give me a reason not to. There it was. Not longing, not regret. Leverage. Cal's bear rose close enough to turn the rain metallic in his senses. His hands grew hot. He unclenched them one finger at a time. You will not use children to bargain for access to me. You sound very certain for someone who spent weeks hiding in cupboards. The daycare door opened. Hazel stood beneath the awning with the lost mitten basket in her arms. Is there a problem? She asked. Maribel's expression changed instantly, anger smoothing into wounded dignity. Cal and I were discussing our family. You do not have a family together, Cal said. Hazel looked from him to Maribel. Her gaze lingered on his hands. The bare heat had brought the claws halfway out. Cal forced them back. Maribel, Hazel said, you are not authorized to enter daycare property without a child scheduled for care. Please leave. Ask him why he hides from me. I am asking you to leave. The gate latch lifted by itself. Maribel walked through it, but her smile promised the conversation had only changed locations. Hazel waited until she reached her car. What did she mean by our family? Cal could still smell threat, rain, and the children inside. He could hear Bix bargaining with Deacon over a cinnamon knot. Every instinct insisted that he protect the safe room by keeping the mess outside. Old manipulation, he said. I'll explain tonight. Hazel's expression closed by one careful degree. That sentence usually means the explanation is already late. He knew it. He said nothing. Inside, Oren had put the rubber centipede back into his mouth. Cal confiscated it and wished every dangerous choice were that easy to see. It never was. That was the problem.
Chapter 13. The twins spent Tuesday making caterpillars from construction paper. Hazel should have recognized the omen. Netta glued 12 green circles in a row and added 37 legs. Oren made one purple circle and declared it a caterpillar. At snack, both children shoved their creations into their mouths. Hazel removed wet paper before either could swallow. Paper does not become a caterpillar because you chewed it. Check, Oren said around green pulp. We have checked repeatedly. Netta studied her soggy craft. Bad bug. It is not a bug. It is paper. Bad paper. Cal turned toward the sink, shoulders shaking. Do not encourage them, Hazel said. I am washing a cup. With your whole body? The morning had begun with Cal arriving 8 minutes early and standing on the opposite side of the sign-in desk as if a laminate counter could make the previous night less complicated. Hazel had waited for his promised explanation. At 9, he'd been helping Mina regulate a storm cloud. At 10, a parent tour had arrived with a werewolf toddler who ate the corner of the enrollment packet. At 11, Cal had said, lunch first. Lunch became cleanup. Cleanup became soggy caterpillars. Delay was not deception, Hazel reminded herself. Delay could be triage. At Abracadabra, most emotional crises were resolved after snacks, because low blood sugar imitated possession with alarming accuracy. Still, every time the brass bell rang, Cal's shoulders tightened. Hazel set the ruined construction paper in the disposal bin. We talked during quiet time. Yes, that was not a question. I know. Bix raised one hand. For the record, none of us anticipate quiet time. The twins began chanting Caterpillar at increasing volume. Hazel drew a calming rune in the air. It glowed lavender, pulsed twice, and attached itself to the paper caterpillar. The craft relaxed so completely that all 12 circles slid apart. Netta gasped. "You killed him." "He was paper. Bad witch." "Documented," Bix said. Cal's smile appeared, but it did not reach his eyes. The brass bell rang 3 times in quick succession. Parents entered wearing expressions usually reserved for fever notices. June Russ carried her phone. Bix's grandmother held hers at arm's length as if it might bite. Behind them, Maribel stood in a cream coat with sorrow arranged across her face. "I didn't want this discussed publicly," she said, to an audience she had assembled. "But I cannot keep watching Cal avoid his family." June held out her phone. The screen showed the Harbor Parents message group, normally reserved for closure notices and warnings about cursed playground sand. Maribel's post sat at the top, beneath a photograph of Cal carrying Tansy away from the picnic fire. The angle hid Everett. It also hid the flames. "Some bonds cannot be denied forever," the caption read. Parents had supplied question marks, heart emojis, and one animated cauldron labeled "Spill the Tea." Hazel had never hated a cauldron before. "We came because June said not to speculate in the group," Bix's grandmother said. June winced. "I said we should ask directly." "At pickup," Hazel said, "one at a time, without an audience." "That seemed slower," June admitted. Gus's father stood behind them holding a bicycle helmet and the bewildered expression of a man who had followed a crowd because it looked like a queue. "Is this about the lunch menu?" "No," 6 people told him. "Then I'll wait outside." Hazel wanted to laugh. Her body had apparently closed that department. Cal went rigid. Hazel felt the room rearrange itself around her worst suspicion. "Outside," she told Maribel. "Ask him." Tansy covered her ears. Fox ears pushed through her hair, trembling. Cal moved toward her and stopped. If he comforted Tansy, Maribel would use it. If he did not, the child would think his distance proved her mother's claim. Hazel saw the trap close in real time. She crouched beside Tansy instead. "Would you like the quiet corner?" Tansy shook her head. "My office?" Another shake. "Under the art table?" Tansy looked at the long cloth draped over the supply table. "Can Cal come?" Maribel made a wounded sound for the parents. Hazel ignored it. "Cal is working. He can sit beside the table while I speak with the adults." Tansy crawled beneath the cloth. Cal sat on the floor, back against a cabinet, his hand palm up near the edge. After a moment, a small hand took it. The sight hurt Hazel in 2 directions at once. Hazel stepped between child and adults. Not in front of the children. All pickup continues normally. Any adult who discusses private family matters in this room loses entry privileges. Her ward magic moved with the command. The brass bell rang once by itself. The parents obeyed. June guided the others toward the gate, apologizing to Hazel and scolding 3 people with the same breath. Bix's grandmother collected Bix, who resisted long enough to announce that his legal analysis would be available after snack. "It will not," Hazel said. "My rates are reasonable. You are 6. I accept crackers." The room emptied by increments. Every departing parent glanced at Cal. Curiosity was not condemnation, but Hazel could feel the daycare's trust becoming conditional around them. Her license required disclosure of custody disputes involving enrolled children. It did not require staff to publish romantic histories. The distinction should have been clean. Maribel had smeared it deliberately. Hazel sent a controlled pulse through the front ward. The gate locked. The blinds lowered halfway, shielding the children without sealing the room. "No more arrivals until scheduled pickup," she said. The brass bell gave an obedient chime. Oren pointed at it. "Bell's scared." "Bell has judgment," Netta said. Maribel did not. "People deserve to know who has access to their children. People deserve verified information. You will leave now." For the first time, Maribel looked uncertain. Then she saw Cal's silence and recovered. "He knows I'm telling the truth." Tansy's ears stood so high, the dark tips touched her hair. Hazel saw. So did Cal. Neither would use a frightened child as a lie detector. Everett arrived at the door. He took in the parents, Maribel and Tansy's ears. "What did you do?" he asked his wife. "I'm done protecting him." Everett's face drained. "Maribel, don't," she warned him. Everett stepped inside when Hazel released the gate. His face held none of Maribel's performance. Only exhaustion, sharpened by the sight of his frightened child. "I got 6 messages from parents I don't know," he said. "One congratulated me for being mature about shared custody. You know Cal has always. I know Cal left you. I married you. Tansy and Rowan are my children. The younger child's name landed with necessary solidity. A real boy at home with his grandmother, not a prop in Maribel's story. Maribel's scent turned sharp enough that even Hazel caught fox musk beneath her perfume. We agreed not to humiliate the family, Maribel said. You posted a photograph to 200 people. Because he came back. He took a job. At her daycare. Our daughter's daycare, Everett said. Which you chose. For a heartbeat, Maribel had no answer. Hazel understood then that this was not a case built on evidence. It was an emotional fire set in a crowded room, trusting everyone else to panic before noticing who held the match. She walked past him into the street. He crouched in front of Tansy. I'm taking you home. Are you still my daddy? She whispered. Every adult in the room went silent. Everett gathered her against his chest. Always. There has never been a question. Tansy clutched his collar. Mama said Cal was supposed to be. Everett closed his eyes. Adults can say cruel things when they are angry. That was cruel, and it was not true. Cal remained on the floor beside the art table. The bear in his gaze had come close, gold ringing his irises, but his voice stayed gentle. Your dad makes fox pancakes, he said. Tansy sniffed. Triangle ears. A recognized paternal credential. Everett's laugh broke in the middle. Tansy smiled anyway. Hazel's heart pulled toward Cal. Her trust did not follow as easily. Hazel looked at Cal. Every adult in the room knew the truth. None of that made it public enough to stop Maribel from inventing another version. Still, Maribel's accusation had found the exact hollow left by Cal's hiding. After pickup, Hazel closed the office door behind them. Cal stood instead of taking the visitor chair. Hazel remained behind the desk because she needed one object in the room to be exactly where she expected. Outside, Deacon had volunteered to supervise the twins for 10 minutes. His qualifications consisted of bakery ownership, 2 younger sisters, and the confidence of a man who had never watched a child become an arthropod. Nobody licks anything alive, he called through the wall. Define alive, Bix answered. If it can leave on its own, don't taste it. Hazel made a note to revise the phrasing later. What she posted is false, Cal said. I know. You told me both children were Everett's. He confirmed it again today. There has never been a question. Then why is she making one now? Why would this particular lie work? Because I hid. That is not enough. It is while Tansy is 10 feet away. She left. Cal glanced through the office wall, as if he could still hear the child's confusion. She exists, even when she isn't in the room. The answer checked Hazel. He was right about protecting Tansy. Hazel was right that the daycare could not ignore the allegation. Tell me exactly what she threatened and when. Yesterday, she implied she could make wanting a family sound like abandoning one. I thought it was another attempt to get a reaction. Will Everett document the truth? Ask him. Hazel reached for the phone. Every cubby tablet began vibrating at once. Parent group messages multiplied across the screen. Maribel had posted publicly. Cal read the first lines over Hazel's shoulder. For years, I protected the father of my children. Now he has taken a job at their daycare while pretending not to know them. Hazel's stomach turned. The post continued beneath a photograph of Cal at the picnic. Maribel never used the word dangerous. She did not have to. She asked whether other parents had been informed, whether Hazel had performed a background check, whether personal entanglements affected staffing decisions. Each question was a small blade polished to resemble concern. Hazel opened the licensing portal. Her fingers moved automatically. Incident record, parent complaint, conflict disclosure. The form asked whether the allegation presented immediate risk. No, Cal said. I did not ask you. You looked at the box. I am assessing. Everett confirmed what you had already told me. This isn't about paternity. That is settled. Hazel hated that the bureaucratic word had entered the room at all. It's about an enrolled parent threatening an employee, a public allegation, and information you withheld after she threatened to publish it. Cal's face went still. So I'm an employee now? You are both. That is what makes this difficult. No, the lie makes it difficult. The lie found room because you kept opening closets. He stepped back as though she had struck him. Hazel wished the sentence returned as easily as it had left. The cupboards had been funny, then suspicious. Now she understood they had also been the physical shape of an old humiliation. That was cruel, she said. It was accurate. Accuracy does not excuse cruelty. Put it in the binder. The office printer produced 3 blank pages, startled by the magic in her pulse. She threatened this yesterday, Cal said. Hazel looked up sharply. You knew? I did not think she'd do it, and you did not tell me. I was going to. When? He had no answer that did not sound like another delay. Hazel clicked yes beneath personally connected parties and began typing in neutral chronology. Cal watched her convert the worst morning of his life into fields and dates. Are you suspending me? He asked. She stopped. The safe administrative answer was yes. The honest operational answer was that losing him tomorrow would leave 12 magical children with 1 caregiver and a volunteer baker. The personal answer was that she wanted to drag him home, lock every ward, and demand the whole story until nothing unknown remained. No, she said. Everett directly contradicted the allegation, and I have witnessed no unsafe conduct. But you cannot manage Tansy's care alone until this is resolved. Because you think I might be her father? Because her mother is manufacturing appearances. He nodded once. The distinction mattered. It did not repair what had cracked. And us? He asked. Hazel looked at the bracelet on his wrist, the one a child had made because Cal felt safe. I need 1 night without another revelation. There aren't any more. I believe you mean that. It was not doubt about paternity. It was doubt about whether another relevant threat was still waiting behind his silence. They both heard the distinction, and it hurt anyway. Outside the office, Bix called, Management, the caterpillar has adhered to my person. They emerged to find Oren's wet papercraft stuck across Bix's forehead like a green ceremonial crown. I demand compensation, he said. The laugh that might have saved them died before it reached either adult. Deacon appeared behind Bix holding a damp towel and a bag of emergency cinnamon knots. I have been in charge for 7 minutes, he said, and I would like to resign retroactively. Oren pointed at the paper crown. It didn't work. Of course it didn't, Hazel said. Paper is not alive. Bix is. Bix's eyes widened. I withdraw my compensation request. Cal peeled the craft away and wiped paste from Bix's forehead. His hands were steady. His voice was gentle. He looked exactly like the man Hazel had trusted with every child in the room. That was the misery of it. Nothing she had learned made him unsafe. What endangered the daycare was not a secret child. It was his habit of withholding an active threat until Maribel made it public. Hazel sent the incident report, muted the parent group, and reopened the blinds. Outside, 6 adults pretended not to be waiting across the street. Inside, Netta held up the surviving paper caterpillar. Bad bug, she said. Hazel met Cal's eyes over the children's heads. Bad paper, he corrected softly. The joke still belonged to both of them. For the moment, neither knew how to reach it.
Chapter 14. By 6 o'clock, the lie had acquired punctuation. Maribel's original post had contained sorrowful paragraphs and 1 strategically blurred photograph. The reposts added exclamation points. A local parenting group added a red banner reading, Safety Concerned. Someone Cal had never met created a poll. The poll had 4 options, none of which was, This is not true. Before Hazel would discuss anything privately, she convened an emergency video call for enrolled families. 11 small rectangles filled the daycare tablet. In 6 of them, children leaned into frame to report facts unrelated to the crisis. My tooth moves, Gus announced. Congratulations, Hazel said. Please do not demonstrate. Gus demonstrated. June Rusk appeared with 1 twin under each arm. I want to apologize for coming in with the crowd. That made things worse. Thank you. Netta licked the tablet screen. Inanimate, Cal and Hazel said together. Their voices aligned automatically. The small intimacy hurt. Hazel read a prepared statement. A parent had made an unverified personal allegation involving an employee. The daycare had received direct contradiction from the children's legal father. No child had been endangered, no custody order had been violated, and no staff member had ever claimed parental rights. She would notify licensing and provide an update without distributing private family records. Was the relationship disclosed when Cal was hired? Asked Mina's mother. Cal and Maribel's former relationship was disclosed after his first shift when I learned she was Tansy's mother. Cal heard the precise omission, the affair, the public story, the threat. Hazel did not lie. She also did not shield him. Do you believe he abandoned those children? Someone asked. Hazel looked toward him, off camera. No, she said. They are not his children, and he did not abandon them. It was the direct answer Cal had needed. Bix's face rose from the bottom of his grandmother's square. Mr. Cal does not abandon children, Bix, she warned. He completed retrieval operations during the fire. That is true, Hazel said gently, but children are not responsible for resolving adult accusations. I accept responsibility. Denied. His grandmother pulled him out of view while he protested the lack of due process. Another parent asked about ratios if Cal were absent. Hazel answered with emergency staffing plans. Another asked whether Tansy would be removed. Hazel said no child lost care because adults behaved badly. That answer sounded like Hazel. Cal held onto it. Then a father whose son attended only Fridays said, "This seems like family drama, not a safety event. Can we stop feeding it?" Agreement moved through the call. Not unanimous, but sufficient. Hazel ended with a reminder that photographing children at pickup violated daycare policy. 3 parent cameras switched off guiltily. When the screen went dark, Cal expected relief. Instead, the room felt like a hearing after the jury had gone home. Cal sat in Hazel's office while she read messages aloud in a voice polished smooth by fury. Why was a bear shifter given secret access to his alleged children? My access isn't secret. I wear a name tag. Did management conceal a custody dispute? There is no custody dispute. Are enhanced background checks required for large carnivore staff? Cal looked down at the yellow bear sticker on his sweater. Mina had added eyelashes. That one is just species discrimination with office supplies. Hazel's mouth almost moved. Almost was worse than nothing. The children had gone home. Deacon occupied the main room as an unofficial witness, feeding the cleaning sprites crumbs and pretending not to listen. Sonia had offered to stay. Hazel had declined with enough formality to freeze a kettle. On the desk between them lay the licensing manual, Cal's personnel file, and the friendship bracelet Bix had restrung after the fire. Cal kept touching it to confirm that one bad hour had not erased every good one. Start with yesterday, Hazel said. The conversation you did not report. Cal looked at the blank incident page. Maribel said Everett barely spoke to her. She said she had chosen the safe life instead of the right one. Then she reminded me I used to want children, and said people believe what fits. Hazel wrote the wording exactly. Did she mention a post? Not directly. Did you understand it as a threat? I understood it as pressure. I told myself she wanted a reaction, not an audience. And this morning? Tansy repeated that I belonged to their family. Everett told me both children were his, and asked me to correct Maribel publicly if she made the claim. Hazel's pen stopped. So by pickup you knew the lie had reached Tansy, and you still did not warn me. Yes. The admission did more than another recital of the old affair could have. Hazel already knew why Cal had left and whose children they were. This was the current failure. He had mistaken silence for containment after the danger crossed her threshold. I was ashamed, he said, and I was wrong. The front bell rang. Hazel stood so quickly, her chair rolled into the file cabinet. Everett waited outside the gate alone, still wearing the navy coat from pickup. Relief moved through Cal, followed by anger that relief was necessary. Hazel admitted him. I can confirm the children are mine, Everett said before the door closed. Both conceived after Maribel and Cal ended. I have birth records at home and a voluntary paternity test from when Maribel's mother made a similar accusation during their engagement. Cal stared at him. There is a test? Everett's shame smelled like cold iron. I didn't want Tansy growing up knowing anyone had questioned her. But you let me spend today without it. I was trying to get Maribel to remove the post first. Everyone keeps protecting children by preserving the lie hurting them. Everett flinched. I know. Hazel leaned forward. Can you provide the documentation tonight? My attorney advised me not to distribute medical records in a parent chat. Your attorney is the first sensible person in this situation. He bills accordingly. Everett took a folded statement from his pocket. This confirms I am their legal and biological father, without attaching private results. He can speak to licensing tomorrow. Hazel read it twice. Cal watched her shoulders lower a fraction. Will you correct Maribel publicly? Hazel asked. I already did. He showed them his phone. His comment was short. Tansy and Rowan are my children. Cal Doherty has never claimed otherwise. Any suggestion that he abandoned them is false. Underneath, Maribel had replied with a broken heart emoji. Cal laughed once, without humor. Punctuation. Everett put away the phone. I am taking the children to my sister's tonight. Maribel and I need to decide what happens next. Do not discuss Cal in front of them, Hazel said. I won't. Do not ask Tansy to explain what her mother said. I won't. And tell your attorney the daycare will cooperate with any custody plan, but will not become a transfer location unless supervised terms are in writing. Everett nodded. Thank you for taking care of her. He looked at Cal. And thank you for not making this worse when you could have. Cal touched the bracelet. I'm reconsidering the policy. Everett's mouth twisted. Fair. After he left, the office felt smaller. The proof Hazel had requested now sat beneath her hand. It should have repaired the fracture. Instead, she turned to the licensing manual. I need to report the allegation and Everett's response, she said. Fine. Until the reviewer acknowledges it, you cannot supervise Tansy alone. Also fine. Given Maribel's threat and your undisclosed history with an enrolled family, I need to suspend you from child contact for 48 hours. Cal waited for the sentence to rearrange itself into something reasonable. It did not. Everett just gave you documentation. He gave me a lawyer's statement. Licensing has not evaluated it. You heard him. I did. You heard Maribel threaten me yesterday, after you had already kept the threat from me. The bracelet tightened around Cal's wrist, though that was impossible. So this is punishment. It is procedure. Procedure would have suspended me this morning. You waited until closing because you needed me for ratio. Hazel went white. The accusation was unfair. It was also close enough to truth to hurt them both. Emergency staffing influenced timing, she said. There it is. Would you rather I close without notice and leave every family stranded? I'd rather you say this is about my failure to report the threat, not pretend his paternity is still uncertain. Hazel's hands flattened on the desk. I believe you care for the children. I believe you have been good at this job. I also believe you concealed relevant information because you decided I could not be trusted with it. Shame does not make the information irrelevant. No, it makes me human. You are not human. Silence fell. Hazel closed her eyes. That is not what I meant. From the main room came a crash, followed by Deacon saying, Nobody panic, the broom has unionized. A cleaning brush marched past the office doorway, carrying a crumb like a banner. Deacon followed it with a dustpan. The sprites have submitted demands. Not now, Hazel said. They want Tuesdays off and access to the good shortbread. Deacon. He looked at Cal, took in the key still hanging from his belt, and understood more than Cal wanted anyone to understand. Right, Deacon said quietly. Labor negotiations adjourned. The brush threw its crumb at his shoe. Management has rejected the adjournment. He closed the office door from the outside. Cal wished the interruption had been funny enough to release the pressure. Humor required a shared place to land. He and Hazel stood on opposite sides of every sentence now. Under any other circumstances, Cal would have helped. He could not find the part of himself that knew how. I am not afraid of your bear, Hazel said. No, you're afraid of anything you didn't put in a field before it happened. That is cruel. Accuracy doesn't excuse cruelty. I heard you. He should have stopped. Instead, he looked at the daycare, the art taped crookedly to the wall, the reading nest he had reinforced, the tiny boot prints near the sensory table. This place had begun to feel like a future before he had asked whether it was allowed to. How long, he asked. 48 hours, pending licensing guidance. Paid? Hazel hesitated. I have to check the policy. Cal nodded. Of course you do. He removed his employee key from the ring. It lay in his palm beside the little wooden bear charm Hazel had given him after his first week. Don't, she said. You suspended me. Temporarily. Because a woman who lied about me told the lie loudly enough. Because you hid the conditions that let her weaponize it here. You keep saying here as if I brought her into the daycare. You enrolled her daughter. You hired me. I tried to leave the moment I saw Maribel. Hazel's fingers curled against the desk, and I asked you to stay. Yes. They both heard what lived beneath it. Hazel had asked him to stay at the daycare, in her bed, in the future she had almost admitted wanting. Now staying required him to accept that his word ranked below her fear. He set the key on the open binder. I quit. Hazel stared at it. Cal, don't turn a temporary safeguard into a permanent decision. I thought this job was partnership. You are an employee. I know. His voice broke on the word and steadied. That's the problem. The bell rang when he opened the front door. Outside, 3 parents stood across the street pretending to examine Deacon's bakery menu. One lifted a phone. Hal stopped beneath the daycare sign. Every instinct that had put him in cupboards demanded he lower his head and disappear. He looked directly at the camera. Tansy and Rowan Bell are Everett Bell's children, he said. I did not abandon them. I left their mother years before either child was born. Cal walked away in the rain before his bear could carry him somewhere faster. Behind him, Abracadabra's bell gave one last bright note. He did not turn around, not even once.
Chapter 15. Without Cal, the daycare did not become impossible. It became joyless. Hazel could manage 6 children alone, with emergency help from Sonia and Deacon. She had managed before Cal. She possessed certifications, contingency schedules, and a color-coded list of people willing to answer a telephone before 7 in the morning. None of them did bear impressions during breathing exercises. On Wednesday, Gus refused to nap and accumulated crackers in his pockets until he rattled. Mina's rain cloud followed Hazel into the bathroom. Bix formed a grievance committee because the orange cups had been stacked behind the blue cups. Netta and Oren found a caterpillar on the playground fence. Hazel reached them before either tongue made contact. Eyes only, she said, placing a mesh observation dome over the caterpillar. Oren pressed his nose against the screen. Tiny. Correct. Could be tiny. You are already tiny. Tinier. Netta opened her mouth thoughtfully. No, didn't do it. Your intentions were visible. No lick, no crime, Bix said from the sandbox. Hazel added complicity to the day's mental incident log. Cal would have crouched beside the dome and turned the lesson into a ridiculous lecture about responsible caterpillar citizenship. Hazel gave the children 3 accurate facts about metamorphosis and returned them inside before the ache could become noticeable. It was noticeable. At lunch, Deacon arrived with vegetable soup, bread, and the determined cheer of a man approaching a dangerous animal with a picnic basket. Good news, he said. The cleaning sprites accepted Wednesdays off instead of Tuesdays. Hazel set bowls on the table. There were no negotiations. They disagree. A dust brush leaned out of the supply closet and shook one bristled fist. I will revisit their binding charm, Hazel said. The brush withdrew. Strong labor policy, Deacon told her. She gave him the look that usually made delivery people remember appointments elsewhere. Deacon buttered 6 pieces of bread. How are you? He asked. At ratio. That is not an emotion. It is the most relevant condition. He stopped spreading butter. Hazel. I filed the report. Licensing acknowledged Everett's attorney's statement this morning. Cal's suspension would have ended at noon. But he quit. Yes. And you haven't called him. Correct. Because an apology delivered to get an employee back on shift is not an apology. It is staffing. Deacon considered her. Annoyingly ethical. Thank you. Not entirely praise. The office telephone rang before Hazel could answer. Dr. Fenn Brackett's name appeared on the display, turning Hazel's stomach into a closed fist. She carried the phone into the office. Abracadabra Daycare, Hazel Pendergast speaking. Miss Pendergast, I have your incident filing and Mr. Bell's counsel statement. Brackett sounded as if she ironed her sentences. Your documentation is thorough. Praise from licensing should have soothed Hazel. Instead, it felt like being complimented on the sharpness of a knife after using it badly. Nothing submitted supports a biological or legal relationship between Mr. Daugherty and the Bell children. His employment check remains clear. Hazel gripped the receiver. So, suspension was unnecessary. Licensing did not instruct you to suspend him. No. Your private staffing decisions are outside my review unless they create ratio deficiencies. A page turned, which they now appear likely to do. I have approved emergency coverage. For 10 business days, your permanent assistant position remains a condition of expanded certification. Hazel stared through the office doorway. Sonia was using the felt dragon to negotiate Gus's release of 3 pocket crackers. Deacon intercepted a 4th. I am aware. Given the transformation incidents, the picnic fire, and the new parental complaint, I am moving your final inspection to Friday. Hazel checked the calendar. That is in 2 days. Your facility is already operating. Provisional operation. Children are famously indifferent to adjectives. Hazel wrote the time. 9 o'clock? 8:30. I will need both staff accounts of the fire and the recent dispute. Mr. Daugherty resigned. Silence traveled down the line. Then request his voluntary statement, Dr. Brackett said. Do not condition wages or references on his participation. I would never. Your report says you delayed suspension until closing because of ratio. Hazel's face heated. She had documented that too. Thoroughness was a poor hiding place. I see your concern, she said. Good. Friday will evaluate judgment as well as wards. When the call ended, Hazel added Inspection Friday to the calendar. The ink rune underlined itself twice, then produced a small black cloud. Unhelpful, she told it. The cloud rained 3 drops on her incident binder. Hazel could not decide whether the daycare magic had developed opinions or merely better timing. Across the table, Bix tasted his soup. Need salt. You are 6, Deacon said. My palate is 7. At 2, Sonia arrived in purple rain boots with a tote bag full of puppets and no authorization to use either. Hazel met her at the gate. You are here for supervised emergency coverage, not creative programming. I know. Sonia held up both hands. The puppets are emotional support. A felt dragon popped out of the tote. We respect structure, Sonia said in a gravelly voice. The dragon remains in the bag. Management is afraid of dissent, Bix observed. Sonia put the dragon away. The restraint cost her enough that Hazel felt briefly guilty. They made it through quiet time. Gus slept only after Sonia lay on the floor and pretended his blanket had defeated her in combat. Mina's cloud rained into a bucket. The twins colored pictures of ladybugs, each insect supplied with enough teeth to alarm science. Hazel used the calm to strengthen the transformation ward. Fatigue made magic literal. Anxiety made it enthusiastic. Hazel knelt near the cubbies, fed power through the copper seam, and instructed the ward to secure all adult movement during an unauthorized transformation. The floor glowed green. Every adult shoe sank 3 inches into the linoleum. Hazel stared at her trapped boots. Sonia looked down at hers. Technically, I am secure. Deacon, who had returned to collect soup containers, tested 1 foot. Very secure. The children walked freely among them. Netta stood before Hazel with her hands on her hips. Look with your eyes. Thank you, Netta. Not help with hands. I am aware of the policy. Oren crouched and poked the floor beside Hazel's heel. Floor 8 witch. The floor is experiencing a rule conflict. Floor hungry. Bix dragged a chair into the center of the room and climbed onto it. As the only mobile person with crisis experience, you once got stuck in a laundry hamper, Hazel said. Experience. Everyone remains where I can see them. Mina raised her hand. Can we get crackers? No. Gus jingled when he walked. Especially you. To release the ward, Hazel needed to touch the copper seam behind the reading nest. It lay 12 feet away. Her wand sat on the office desk, because she had stopped carrying it after Cal teased her about holsters. The memory arrived with absurd force. Sonia stretched toward a basket of rhythm sticks. I can hook one with my scarf. Those conduct magic unpredictably. We could ask a child to bring the wand, Deacon said. No child handles an active focus during ward malfunction. We could wait for the floor to digest us. Thank you, Deacon. Hazel closed her eyes and traced the daycare's ward lattice in her mind. Entry, fire, transformation. 3 systems woven together because separate systems had once failed to communicate. She had built redundancy and then made herself the only person permitted to repair it. Cal had told her that was not redundancy. She had called it oversight. Hazel removed her feet from her boots. She stepped onto the floor in stocking feet. The ward pulsed, confused. Hazel was an adult, but her adult shoes remained secured. The magic had followed the noun instead of the person. I have outwitted my own syntax, she said. Deacon applauded. The twins copied him. Soon every child was clapping, while Hazel crossed the room in purple socks covered with tiny cauldrons. These were a gift, she said. From yourself? Sonia asked. Hazel freed the ward with more force than necessary. The linoleum released every shoe at once. Sonia sat down hard. Deacon stumbled into the puppet tote. The felt dragon emerged over his shoulder. Management prevails, he growled in the puppet voice. The children cheered. Releasing the spell cost Hazel her color vision for an hour. The daycare went gray. Toys, art, faces, all reduced to value without hue. She sat at her desk, drinking apple juice, because magic depletion responded to sugar, and humiliation responded to closed doors. Tansy crawled beneath the desk with a box of blocks. You can play in the main room, Hazel said. It's loud. Hazel understood. She moved her feet aside. Tansy built a house against the filing cabinet. Hazel could tell the blocks had different colors only by their worn labels. Tansy arranged them confidently, a child in a world that still made sense to her. Cal hid from Mama, Tansy said. Hazel set down the juice box. He did. Was he scared? Hazel thought of the supply cupboard, the rigid set of Cal's shoulders, and how easily she had mistaken fear for guilt. Yes. Tansy fitted a triangular roof over the walls. Mama tells lies when she wants a different ending. Hazel's breath stopped. You do not have to explain grown-up things. Good. They're boring. Extremely. Cal says families aren't bakery orders. That sounds like Cal. Mama says he belongs to her. Tansy added a block chimney. But people aren't blocks. No. Blocks don't mind belonging. Hazel looked at the little house. People should get to choose. Tansy nodded, satisfied that Hazel had finally caught up. The office phone spoke Maribel's name aloud. Tansy's fox ears sprang through her hair. Hazel declined the call. She would not use a 5-year-old's fear as evidence. She would also stop treating Maribel's confidence as evidence simply because it resembled certainty. When Hazel's color vision returned, Tansy's roof was yellow. The door was green. One wall was red and one blue. It's not symmetrical, Hazel said. It's a house. Another correction. At pickup, Everett arrived with his sister. His eyes looked bruised from lack of sleep. Maribel is staying with her mother, he said quietly. My attorney is preparing a temporary schedule. Tansy and Rowan are with me. I need the order as soon as it exists. You will have it. He crouched to admire the blockhouse. Tansy told him which room held the Fox pancake stove. Hazel watched father and daughter leave together and felt the last defensible piece of her decision collapse. She had not suspended Cal because the evidence required it. She had suspended him because uncertainty frightened her, and authority let her make the fear look official. That truth did not make his silence harmless. It made both of them responsible for different injuries. After the final child left, Hazel found Deacon glazing buns at Crumb and Kettle. The closed sign hung in the window, but he unlocked the door when she knocked. I need you to tell me everything you saw between Cal and Maribel, she said. Deacon set down the pastry brush. After the open house, she pinned him beside the animal trailer. Pinned? Closed the distance every time he backed away. Touched his chest. He removed her hand. She did it again. Hazel remembered Cal emerging from behind the trailer, pale and brittle. She had accepted Maribel's explanation because Cal's behavior looked guilty. Fear looked like many things when observed from a comfortable distance. Why didn't you tell me? I thought you two communicated like adults. Hazel pressed both hands over her face. A reckless assumption, Deacon conceded. Sonia sat at a corner table with the felt dragon and a cup of tea. Apparently emotional support had union benefits. You were protecting the daycare, she said. I was protecting myself from uncertainty. I decided speed made me safe. Her mother went still. I taught you that, Sonia said. Hazel looked at her. By making you the careful one. By leaving you to catch what I dropped and calling you gifted when you succeeded. Sonia twisted the teabag string around one finger. I loved you. I also made my chaos your responsibility. Both are true. Hazel's throat ached. You forgot a child during a fire. Yes. No excuse. No reminder that everyone survived. The clean admission opened a door Hazel had barred for 19 years. I am sorry, Sonia said. It did not repair the nursery fire. It did not return Cal's key to his ring. It made repair seem like an action rather than a verdict. Hazel took out her phone. Call him, Sonia said. No. Hazel slipped the phone back into her coat. Some apologies should have to look at what they broke. Deacon boxed 4 cinnamon knots. Emergency provisions. I am not bribing him with pastry. Then give him 3. Outside, the rain had stopped. Hazel stood beneath the bakery awning with a pastry box, Cal's employee key, and no script. For once, she let the uncertainty remain. Then she started walking toward Cal's apartment.
Chapter 16. Cal owned 3 boxes. One contained clothes. One contained tools. The third contained objects children had made from materials with no known structural integrity. He sat on the floor of his apartment, holding a paper plate bear, with 1 eye and 6 legs. Gus had given it to him after Cal's second week at Abracadabra. On the back, Hazel had written the date because Hazel believed memories required labels. Cal put the bear in the third box. His landlord had not asked him to leave. His savings could cover 2 months. The construction company in Portland had offered an interview on Monday. None of those facts explained why he had packed the kettle. His phone rang from inside the tools box. Cal found it beneath a tape measure and 2 screwdrivers. The caller was Martin Vale, foreman for the Portland crew. Art says you can read plans and manage idiots, Martin said after introductions. One of those is more reliable. You still certified for commercial framing? Yes. Can you start Monday? Cal looked at the third box. A silver star from Mina leaned against a clay thumbprint moon. There was no reason objects made by daycare children should influence employment decisions. There was also no reason he had packed them before the dishes. I can interview Monday, he said. Art spoke highly of you. Art had once called Cal an overgrown level with trust issues. This was probably praise in construction. What happened to your last foreman? Cal asked. Eloped with the electrician. Conflict of interest? Excellent wiring. Martin sent the address. Cal agreed to arrive at 9 and ended the call without promising anything else. Another notification waited. Bix's grandmother had sent a voice recording titled Evidence Unsolicited. Cal pressed play. Mr. Cal, Bix said solemnly, I have reviewed your resignation. Management's corrective action lacked progressive discipline. Also, Orinate paste again. Your institutional knowledge is required. This is not emotional coercion. Grandmother says hello. In the background, his grandmother said, I did not authorize this. Authorization is pending, Bix replied. The recording ended. Cal sat on the floor with the phone in his hand. Leaving construction had been frightening because work had always measured him in pounds carried, beams squared, injuries ignored. At Abracadabra, his usefulness had become harder to separate from affection. Children needed him, but children needed many adults. Being loved was not the same as being indispensable. That distinction should have made leaving easier. He replayed the message once, then saved it beside a photograph of Frog Orin in Hazel's palm. The frog had been the size of a child's fist, furious and damp, the largest form either twin could manage. Hazel's expression in the corner of the frame was equal parts triumph and suspicion. Cal had taken the picture because he wanted evidence that impossible things could be held safely. His bear moved under his skin, restless in the half-empty apartment. The animal disliked boxes, departures, and the absence of a witch whose rules had become familiar boundaries. Cal opened the window to let in rain-cooled air. Across the alley, the upstairs neighbor's cat stared at him from a sill. Do not, Cal warned. The cat pushed the flower pot 1 inch closer to the edge. That is exactly the behavior I mean. The cat pushed again. Cal crossed the alley in bear form only in his imagination. In reality, he reached through the window with a broom and nudged the pot back. The cat looked disappointed by his commitment to non-escalation. Growth, Cal told it. A knock sounded at the door. Cal smelled cinnamon, wet wool, and witch before he stood. He did not open it. I know you are home, Hazel called. Shifter discrimination. Your light is visible beneath the door. He looked at the lamp. Poor operational security. Silence followed, then the soft scrape of cardboard against the hall floor. I brought cinnamon knots, she said. Bribery. Deacon says 3 constitutes a gift. How many are there? 4. Cal opened the door. Hazel stood in her green coat with the pastry box held at chest height. Rain had curled strands of dark hair around her face. She looked exhausted and exact, as if she had spent the walk arranging every word and disliked all of them. Her gaze moved past him to the boxes. Are you leaving Bellwether? Considering it. For where? Portland. Construction crew needs a foreman. You do not want to return to construction. Want has become a luxury category. Hazel flinched. Cal regretted the sentence and did not take it back. May I come in? She asked. He stepped aside. His apartment had 1 chair, 1 narrow couch, and the visual warmth of an unbuttered potato. Hazel placed the pastry box on the counter. Her eyes found the packed kettle. That is an aggressive level of readiness, she said. It fits in the clothes box. That is worse. The familiar rhythm appeared, fragile but alive. Cal leaned against the wall, rather than reach for it. Why are you here? Hazel removed his employee key from her pocket. She set it beside the pastries but kept 1 finger over it. Not to ask you back to work. You brought the key. It is yours. You returned it while angry. I am returning the decision when you are not standing inside my office after a public accusation. I remain angry. Then the key can wait. She drew a breath. I am sorry I treated uncertainty as danger, and authority as proof that my fear was correct. Everett contradicted Maribel. You gave me the history I demanded. I suspended you anyway, because procedure let me act before I had to trust my own judgment. Cal had imagined her apology during the night. In every version he interrupted. Now he said nothing. Hazel continued. I also used staffing needs to delay a decision I claimed was about safety. That was unfair to you and dishonest management. Licensing did not require the suspension. You spoke to Brackett. This morning, the final inspection is Friday. It was not delivered as good news. He nearly smiled. I am not asking you to forgive me, she said. I am asking what repair would look like if you wanted any. The careful phrase unsettled him more than a declaration would have. Hazel liked solutions. She was offering him the right to say there wasn't one. Why now? Pansy made me realize I was treating Maribel's version as evidence. I did not use a child's judgment to decide anything. I asked Deacon what he had witnessed. I spoke to licensing. I reviewed my own timeline. You conducted an audit. I knew an apology spreadsheet would be poorly received. You made one. Hazel looked offended. Only a chronology. Cal laughed despite himself. The sound hurt coming out.
I saw the parent call, he said. When they asked if you believed I abandoned the children, you answered with Everett's statement. I was trying to avoid making a claim I could not document. I know.
It was cowardly. Also accurate. Both can be true. That was new. Hazel had once used accuracy as a fortress. Now she left the door open. Cal sat on the couch. She remained standing until he gestured toward the chair. I owe you an apology too, he said. Not for Maribel's lie, not for being ashamed, for deciding you couldn't handle the truth and then resenting you for not knowing it. Hazel folded her hands in her lap. Thank you. I saw her at open house and hid because I thought leaving would solve the problem. Every time she appeared after that, the hiding got harder to explain. Then it looked like evidence. It looked like fear. You know that now. I should have known it then. No, you should have asked. I should have answered. The rain tapped the window. Cal's bear stirred near the surface, drawn to Hazel's scent and the grief she was holding so tightly. June came by this afternoon, he said. Why? To give me a Caterpillar emergency update and tell me I was an idiot. In that order, the Caterpillar had scheduling priority. June had found Cal carrying boxes down to his truck. Netta and Oren were strapped into the back seat, each holding a sealed observation jar, as if entrusted with royal jewels. We found 2, June had said. Nobody licked them. Personal growth. Then she had followed him upstairs, while the twins narrated the Caterpillar's private lives through the open window. You let Maribel's story grow because you thought silence was neutral, June had told him. It isn't. Silence is a greenhouse. That metaphor has pests, Cal had said. I have twins. All metaphors have pests. She had reminded him that Hazel hired him after seeing his bear, trusted him with children during a fire, and was capable of being wrong without being permanently unsafe. June is surprisingly ruthless, Cal told Hazel. She negotiates with 2 mouth shifters before breakfast. She said repair requires public truth. Hazel nodded. I agree. Not a vague statement about unverified allegations. The daycare needs to say Maribel's claim was false. Everett's attorney has approved that language. I drafted a correction but did not send it because it uses your name. Show me. Hazel handed him her phone. It said, Cal Doherty had no parental relationship to the Bell children, had never sought secret access, and had resigned following an internal response that the daycare now recognized as disproportionate. It apologized to him without describing his private history. You included your mistake, he said. It is part of the truth. Send it. The message whooshed into the parent group. Hazel set the phone face down without watching for reactions. What else? She asked. Cal rubbed the bracelet between his fingers. No more unilateral decisions about safety, if you expect me to share responsibility. If I come back, there needs to be a written role. Authority, not just liability. Agreed. You haven't heard the details. I have been drafting a co-safety director position since 3 this morning. Of course you have. It includes authority to pause operations, modify emergency procedures, and challenge a ward design before installation. Before would be nice. The floor incident was educational. Cal stared. What floor incident? Hazel's expression became carefully blank. No children were endangered. Hazel. 3 adult shoes required minor repair. What happened? The floor ate us. His laugh came so hard he bent forward. Hazel waited with offended dignity for it to pass. I was gone one day. The linoleum was opportunistic. Cal wiped his eyes. The apartment felt warmer. That was dangerous too. And us? He asked. Hazel did not look away. I love you. The words entered without decoration. I realized it before the suspension, she continued. That makes what I did worse, not better. Love did not automatically make me brave or fair. Cal's bear wanted to cross the room. Cal kept his hands on his knees. I love you too, he said. That doesn't mean I'm ready to walk back into your bed. I know. Her voice shook once. I am not asking. I need to see what happens when the next thing isn't in your binder. Reasonable. And you need to see what happens when I want to hide. You tell me before selecting a cupboard. That can be policy. Hazel's phone vibrated. She glanced at it. Dr. Brackett needs your account of the picnic fire and Maribel's confrontation, she said. You are not obligated to attend. But, if you do not, she may delay certification. That is my problem, not yours. Cal appreciated that she did not turn the request into duty. I'll attend as a witness, he said, not an employee. Understood. And if the wards fail, I intervene. Agreed. Even if it disrupts procedure. Cal, practicing details. She smiled, small and real. Agreed. He pushed the pastry box toward her. You brought 4, that makes 1 mine. Deacon's arithmetic suggested 3 were yours. He was bribing me. And? Effective pastries should not determine employment. That is disappointingly principled. They ate 1 each at his counter. Hazel left the remaining 2 and took neither the key nor the distance between them. At the door, she paused beside the 3rd box. The paper plate bear stared up with its single eye. 6 legs, she said, anatomically ambitious. Gus was proud. I know. Hazel touched the box flap but did not close it. Friday at 8:30. I'll be there. Cal stood in the hallway until her footsteps disappeared. Then he unpacked the kettle. He left the other boxes closed. The distinction mattered. Unpacking everything would pretend an apology had erased the injury. Leaving everything packed would pretend the injury had erased what came before it. Cal filled the kettle and set it on the stove. While it heated, Hazel's correction gathered replies in the parent group. June posted a heart. Bix's grandmother posted, "Thank you for the clarity." 3 parents apologized for speculating. 1 asked whether Friday care would proceed normally. Cal did not answer. He was not staff. The kettle whistled. For tonight, staying long enough to make tea was decision enough.
Chapter 17. Hazel scheduled the confrontation for 7 Thursday morning because manipulation looked less impressive beside industrial quantities of flour. Crumb and Kettle was closed to customers. Deacon stood behind the counter in an apron that read, "Proofing is believing." He had agreed to serve as witness, host, and emergency pastry provider. No theatrics, Hazel told him. I made objection eclairs. That is exactly what I mean. They have vanilla filling. I am not eating a legal pun. Deacon placed one beside her tea. Noted. Maribel arrived 9 minutes late, wearing cream wool and red lipstick. Everett arrived separately, 1 minute after her, with his attorney on speakerphone in his coat pocket. This is absurd, Maribel said when she saw him. Then it should be brief, Hazel replied. Everett took a table near the window. He looked as though he had slept in intervals measured by children's nightmares. I am here because anything concerning daycare access affects our temporary agreement. Maribel's gaze sharpened. You cannot keep my children from me. I am not. My sister is supervising visits until we agree on boundaries. Because she told a dramatic story at pickup? Hazel set down her cup. Because you made a false paternity claim in front of Tansy, posted it to the public, threatened an employee, and used daycare property to pursue him after being told to leave. I never said Cal was biologically their father. Your post called him the father of your children, emotionally. You wrote paternity can hide, but blood remembers, Everett said. Maribel folded her arms. It was poetic. Deacon slid a marrow pastry onto the table. A tiny card identified it as Exhibit Danish. Hazel looked at him. No theatrics, he whispered, and withdrew it. Hazel opened her incident binder. For daycare purposes, the biological question is resolved. Everett is the legal and biological father. Cal has no custodial relationship. Your statements were false. Fine. Maribel waved one hand. The children are Everett's. The admission came casually, as if the truth had been available all along, and everyone else had behaved foolishly by requesting it. Everett closed his eyes. Hazel made herself continue. Why did you say otherwise? Because Cal returned and acted as if I was a stranger. You are not entitled to his attention. We spent 5 years together. Then you cheated on him. The bakery ovens gave a low, settling thump. Maribel glanced toward Everett. He told you. Yes. Of course he made himself the victim. Everett stood. You told me Cal knew about us. He knew we were unhappy. That is not consent. Don't let her turn us against each other. Maribel pointed at Hazel. Hazel almost admired the speed. Your marriage is outside my authority. Your conduct at my daycare is not. She slid a written boundary notice across the table. Maribel could enter only during scheduled drop-off and pickup, or with Hazel's written approval. Everett's sister would handle transfers under the temporary plan. Direct contact with staff outside care matters was prohibited. Violations would result in termination of enrollment, subject to safety requirements. Maribel did not touch the paper. You would punish Tansy because you want Cal. No, I am preserving Tansy's care while removing opportunities for you to use it as leverage. He owes me a conversation. No. He let everyone think I was the reason we failed. Everett made a broken sound. You were. Maribel turned on him. You wanted me to. Wanting you did not make what we did honorable. There, she looked triumphantly at Hazel. He admits it. They both left me holding the consequences. You married me, Everett said. Because Cal wouldn't fight. The sentence revealed the architecture beneath every accusation. Maribel had not wanted Cal back as a person. She wanted proof that she remained worth fighting over, even if the battlefield was her own family. Hazel felt anger rise, hot and clean. She did not turn it into magic. Cal's silence protected you, she said. You converted it into evidence against him. That ends now. You think public correction changes what people believe? Not instantly. Hazel thought of the messages, the guilty cameras, and Bix's small voice defending an adult. Truth is not less necessary because lies travel faster. Maribel finally picked up the boundary notice. And if I refuse? Everett's sister handles all daycare contact while you arrange alternate care. You can't. The attorney's voice emerged from Everett's pocket. She can under the enrollment agreement you signed, provided the restrictions are applied for documented safety reasons. Maribel stared at the pocket. Deacon placed an eclair beside it. Counsel's breakfast. The attorney said, Thank you. He cannot eat through the phone, Hazel said. Objection, eclair does not recognize jurisdiction. Maribel pushed back her chair. This town will get bored with your little rules. Children rarely do, Hazel said. They find boundaries reassuring. You're smug because you got him. The accusation struck where certainty did not exist. Cal is not an object anyone gets. He is choosing what happens next. Maribel's expression shifted. For the first time she looked not powerful or wounded, but afraid. He always leaves, she said. People are allowed to leave situations that hurt them. Everett looked down at the table. Maribel read his movement. You're leaving too. I am taking time to decide, he said. The children and I are safe. You need help that cannot come from forcing people to prove they love you. She folded the notice into quarters, placed it in her handbag, and walked out. The bell over Deacon's door rang. Nobody followed her. Everett sat again. I loved her, he said to no one in particular. You may still, Hazel said. That does not seem useful. Love is frequently poor at logistics. Deacon set the exhibit Danish in front of him. Custard is better. Everett ate it without argument. There is something else, he said after a moment. He unlocked his phone and opened a message thread from the night Maribel published the accusation. Her first text to him read, If Cal thinks he can humiliate me by choosing her, I will remind him what abandonment looks like. Everett had answered, Do not involve the children. Maribel's reply was a photograph of the draft post. You had this before pickup? Hazel asked. 3 minutes before. I was driving. Send it to your attorney and preserve the original. Already done. He looked ashamed. I nearly deleted it. I kept thinking if I refused to make it evidence, we could return to being a family. Hazel understood the impulse too well. Evidence forced decisions. Ambiguity let hope wear whatever costume it wanted. Keeping a fact does not determine what you do with your marriage, she said. It only prevents someone else from determining what the fact was. Is that what you told Cal? Eventually. Everett put away the phone. I barely knew him before the affair. Maribel introduced me as a client twice, and I shook his hand like I wasn't helping her lie to him. That almost makes the silence worse, Hazel said. It does. When he found us, he didn't hit me. I almost wished he would. Anger would have been easier than the way he looked at me. Have you apologized? Not in any way that required him to answer. Hazel waited. Everett sighed. No. Then you have confused proximity with completion. Deacon pointed the pastry brush at her. That one goes on a mug. It does not. Everett's tired smile emerged. I will apologize, without asking him to absolve me. Good. Does everyone receive homework at these meetings? Deacon boxed an eclair, only with breakfast. Everett took the box and left for his attorney's office. Hazel remained at the table, staring at the tea she had not touched. Confronting Maribel had not produced triumph. It had produced a quiet room full of consequences and one untouched objection eclair. Deacon sat across from her. You did well, he said. I established a boundary she should never have crossed. That is often what doing well looks like. Less trumpets, more paperwork. You made 5 pastries. 6, the hearsay turnover is still proofing. Hazel ate the objection eclair. It was excellent, which annoyed her further. At 8:15, Hazel unlocked Abracadabra. Cal arrived at 8:27, carrying no employee key and wearing the charcoal sweater from their first night together. In the 12 minutes before he arrived, Hazel tested the entry wards twice, the fire wards 3 times, and the revised transformation boundary once. A wild lightning squirrel watched from the rafters, tail wrapped around a ceiling hook. It had stolen Hazel's red inspection pen and held it crosswise in its mouth. That is not enrichment, Hazel told it. Its cheeks sparked. It contains conductive metal. The squirrel put one paw on the clip. Exactly. Hazel held out a walnut. The squirrel considered the exchange, dropped the pen, and caught the walnut before it landed. The pen fell point first onto the honest inspection file and drew a red line through the words, "All conductive objects secured." Hazel stared at it. Your editorial instincts are unwelcome. The squirrel chittered and ran along the rafters. Hazel revised the line to conductive materials stored with the exception of supervised writing instruments. Then she moved the pen into a lidded drawer. The transformation ward required a live test. Hazel set June's sealed caterpillar habitat inside the marked observation circle and pressed a wooden doll against the boundary. Nothing happened. She passed a practice wand through. The ward chimed once for magical object and remained open. Then she reached through with her bare hand. Lavender light formed a gentle cuff around her wrist. It did not tighten. A line of text appeared in the air. Adult contact. Verify purpose. Observation only, Hazel said. The cuff released. That was the new principle. Interruption followed by judgment, not confinement followed by apology. She documented the result, including the pen incident. When she looked up, Cal stood outside the glass door, watching her with one eyebrow raised. Hazel checked the clock. 8:27. The sight of him made every carefully stacked thought tilt. You came, she said. Witness, he reminded her. Yes. He looked toward the office. Any trouble? Maribel signed the boundary notice. She signed? She folded it. Counsel assures me possession plus stated receipt is sufficient. How many pastries did Deacon name? 5. Low estimate. Cal's smile faded. How is Everett? Trying to distinguish love from obligation. That could take a while. They stood 6 feet apart in the quiet daycare. Hazel wanted to close the distance. Repair did not mean taking whatever comfort was available. Thank you for coming tomorrow, she said. I said I would. I know. Cal nodded toward the office. Show me the inspection file. Hazel had prepared 2 versions. The first was pristine. It contained certifications, corrected diagrams, and incident summaries polished until every error sounded inevitable, and every recovery sounded planned. The second contained everything. Failed transformation wards, Clover's electrical surges, the picnic fire, the floor eating 3 adults, Cal's delayed disclosure, Hazel's delayed suspension, the fact that she had made a staffing decision under pressure, and then reversed her conclusion only after external correction. She handed him the second. Cal read in silence. You included the socks, he said. The socks demonstrate the ward-targeted footwear instead of adult bodies. You described them as purple cauldrons. Material facts. He turned another page. You listed my proposed authority, even though I haven't accepted, as a recommended correction, contingent on your agreement or another qualified hire. And if Brackett denies certification? Hazel looked around the room. I return to limited enrollment and correct what she identifies. I do not hide the problems to preserve the outcome. Cal closed the file. Good, he said. One word should not have felt like a hand around hers. Parents arrived. June brought the twins wearing matching shirts that said, Ask before you lick. Inanimate, Cal said. Checking, Oren replied. June handed Hazel a sealed caterpillar habitat. Nature lesson. 0 oral contact since Tuesday. A strong record. We measure success in hours now. Netta spotted Cal and ran to him, stopping inches from his knees. You back? Cal crouched. Visiting today. Tomorrow? Visiting tomorrow too. After tomorrow? His eyes met Hazel's. Still deciding, he said. Netta considered that. Decide yes. Your recommendation is noted. Bix entered behind his grandmother, carrying a folder. I have prepared supporting testimony. No child testimony, Hazel and Cal said together. Bix sighed. Management remains aligned in oppression. The room laughed. Hazel let herself laugh too. Then she opened the honest file and began preparing for whatever came next. Cal took the chair beside her, rather than the one across the desk. He did not touch her, but when she reached for the fire diagram, he held down the curling corner. They reviewed every ward until noon. He challenged 3 assumptions. Hazel changed 2 and defended 1. Neither mistook disagreement for betrayal. At lunch, Deacon delivered the hearsay turnover. It contains rum, he warned. Then the name is inaccurate, Hazel said. Hearsay and spirits frequently travel together. Cal laughed. Hazel wrote pastry naming, not safety relevant, in the margin of her notes. For the first time she believed it, entirely, without qualification.
Chapter 18. Inspection day began with a frog in a locked box, and Cal pretending that was normal. The frog belonged to Dr. Fenn Brackett. They arrived at 8:28, carrying a leather folio, 3 silver testing rods, and a sealed habitat containing 1 small green amphibian. Live contact simulation, she explained. The frog pressed both front feet to the glass and looked personally betrayed. Was it informed? Cal asked. Dr. Brackett regarded him over their spectacles. The frog is compensated with mealworms. Union scale? Mr. Doherty, are you attending as staff? Witness. Then witness quietly. Hazel made a sound suspiciously like a swallowed laugh. Cal wore visitor identification and no employee key. The distinction felt strange when every part of the daycare remained familiar. Rosemary cleaner, warm cereal, copper wards humming beneath the floor. His body still tracked 6 children without conscious effort. Tansy built a tower by the window. Mina painted under a cloud no larger than a dinner plate. Gus slept in the reading nest, despite having arrived 12 minutes earlier. Bix followed Dr. Brackett with a notepad. I am conducting independent oversight, he told her. Who authorized you? The public interest. Sit down. He did, impressed. Netta and Oren wore their Ask Before You Lick shirts beneath new mesh front smocks. June had braided tiny bells into their cuffs. Every time a hand rose toward a mouth, it jingled. Humiliating, Netta said. Effective, Hazel replied. Dr. Brackett began with records. Hazel gave them the honest file. Cal watched the inspector pause at the description of the shoe-trapping ward. Purple cauldron socks? She asked. Material fact, Hazel said. Debatable. The inspector moved to physical systems. Entry ward, pass. Fire ward, pass. Transformation boundary, pass after a wooden doll, enchanted spoon, and Dr. Brackett's bare hand crossed with the correct responses. Why a spoon? Cal asked. Prior incident data, Hazel said. Clover? The lightning squirrel chittered from the rafters. Dr. Brackett wrote something. Is that a deduction? Hazel asked. It is a note that your squirrel appears to understand subpoenas. The inspector tested the human systems next. She asked Hazel to simulate a fire alarm while Cal remained in the office. Hazel rang the low-tone practice bell. 6 children moved to the silver footprints painted along the wall. Bix brought the attendance slate. Mina carried the weather-calming bottle. The twins each grabbed one side of the same emergency bag and became trapped in the doorway. "Release," Hazel said. Neither released. "I had first," Netta said. "I had other first," Oren said. The practice clock kept counting. Cal waited. The exercise was Hazel's to manage, unless safety changed. "Two handles, one destination," Hazel said. "Walk together, or the bag remains." The twins attempted walking in opposite directions. "This is together," Netta insisted. "Geometrically it is not," Bix said. Hazel unhooked the center strap, turning one bag into two smaller packs. The twins carried them to the assembly point with matching scowls. Dr. Brackett stopped the clock. 1 minute 48. Within standard. Why was that configuration not anticipated? "The bag is new," Hazel said. "The conflict is newer. Correction? Separate labeled packs permanently. Good." Hazel wrote it immediately rather than explaining why the original design should have worked. Cal saw Dr. Brackett notice. Next came a transformation search. The inspector hid 2 enchanted wooden beetles in the room and told Hazel to behave as if each represented a missing insect-form child. "Inanimate objects do not trigger their magic," Oren informed her. "I am aware. Can't be us. It is a simulation." "Bad simulation," Netta said. Dr. Brackett's lips compressed. Cal located one beetle by following the inspector's scent to the paint shelf. Hazel found the other beneath a yellow cushion by applying the twins' documented color preferences. 2 minutes 9, Brackett said. "Acceptable, though actual insects would be harder." Hazel glanced toward Cal. "That is why search authority must be shared between magical containment and shifter senses. Not would be, must be." The proposed role lived in her language even without his answer. Cal felt the unopened employee key like a weight in his apartment. Deacon delivered breakfast at 9:30. Each pastry bore a label: compliant croissant, due process Danish, and one cinnamon knot marked emotional support only. Dr. Brackett selected the cinnamon knot. "That is not evidence of partiality," she said before anyone asked. The daycare settled into its routine. Hazel led a color-matching activity while Cal gave his account of the picnic fire in the office. He described the spider shifts, the puppet stage collapse, his public bear change, and the order in which adults cleared the zone. "You disobeyed Miss Pendergast's initial direction," Dr. Brackett said. "Yes. Would you do so again?" Cal glanced through the glass. Hazel was helping Oren glue a felt circle without letting him lick the felt, glue, or his own sleeve. "If following it placed a child at greater risk, yes. And if you were an employee? Same answer. But I would expect the role to define emergency authority so we're not inventing hierarchy during a fire." Dr. Brackett wrote another note. "Miss Pendergast proposed exactly that. I know. Have you accepted?" "No." "Why not?" "Because this is an inspection, not couples counseling." Her pen stopped. From the playroom, Bix called, "Scope objection sustained." Dr. Brackett removed their spectacles and rubbed the bridge of their nose. "My remaining questions concern the employment response," she said. "Ms. Pendergast documented your suspension as disproportionate. Do you agree?" "Yes." "Do you believe it reflected bias against shifters?" Cal considered. Hazel stood outside the office with her back straight, refusing to pretend she could not hear. "She knew exactly what kind of shifter I was when she hired me. She suspended me because she confuses control with safety when she's afraid." Hazel absorbed the judgment without defense. "And you?" Brackett asked. "What do you confuse?" "Silence with protection. Are either of you likely to repeat those errors?" "Likely?" Cal said. "We're people. Capable? Definitely." That was not reassuring. The correction is reassuring. Named authority, mandatory disclosures affecting enrolled families, and a 2-person review before non-emergency suspension. "You helped draft those?" "I challenged them. Hazel revised them." Dr. Brackett looked through the glass at Hazel. That answer was more reassuring. The brass entry bell rang. Cal smelled Maribel before he saw her. She stood outside the locked gate, carrying a paper shopping bag and Tansy's forgotten blue sweater. Everett was not with her. Neither was his sister. Hazel checked the temporary access notice. "Your sister-in-law is scheduled for pickup." "I am not picking up. Tansy needs her sweater. Leave it in the weather box. It contains a comfort charm. I need to explain it." "You can message Everett." Dr. Brackett joined Hazel at the door. "Is this the parent from the report?" Maribel saw the licensing badge. Her posture changed. I am Tansy's mother, she said. I have serious concerns about a former partner using this facility to gain access to my child. Cal's bear rose against his ribs. Hazel did not look at him. Your claim was formally corrected. Everett confirmed paternity and custody. You acknowledged the access boundary yesterday. I acknowledged receiving a piece of paper under pressure. Tansy heard her mother's voice and came toward the door. Her fox ears appeared immediately. Cal stepped between the child and the entrance without thinking. Maribel pointed through the glass. See, he always puts himself between us. Because you are upsetting her, Hazel said. You don't know my daughter. I know her ears are a stress response. Tansy took Cal's hand. The action was innocent. The timing was disastrous. Maribel lifted her phone and photographed it. Hazel's ward flashed. The gate remained locked, but the phone emitted a sharp pop and shut down. Unauthorized child photography, Hazel said. Please leave. Maribel shoved the sweater through the narrow parcel hatch. The shopping bag caught against the frame. Something inside moved. Cal smelled pond water. Hazel. The bottom of the wet paper bag tore. A second frog fell into the weather box. It sprang through the inner flap before the ward recognized a living object had crossed. The lightning squirrel launched from the rafters, attracted by the burst of gate magic. Its tail struck the habitat on Dr. Brackett's testing cart. The official frog's lid clip snapped open. 2 frogs entered the playroom from opposite directions. The twins' cuff bells erupted. Netta reached the first frog near the cubbies. Oren caught the second beneath the art table. Cal moved, but Hazel's transformation ward reacted first. Lavender cuffs formed around both children's wrists. Adult contact, the ward announced. Wrong category, Hazel shouted. They did not restrain tongues. Netta and Oren licked 1 frog each. Green light filled the room. Their clothes collapsed in 2 small piles. 2 child-sized frogs, no larger than Cal's fist, sprang free. Frog is maximum, Hazel said, as if the rule could comfort anyone, while both maximums were loose. Nobody move, Cal ordered. Every child froze, except Gus, who slept through the command. Frog Netta leaped onto the cubby top. Frog Oren shot beneath the reading nest toward the copper fire seam. Both followed amphibian instinct, height, water, shadow. Cal could identify them by scent. The wards could not. Hazel canceled the mistaken cuffs. The transformation boundary sealed every exit. The entry wards sealed in response. 3 safety systems tried to protect 6 children in incompatible directions. Clover landed on the copper rail. Electricity cracked through the daycare. The lights went out. Mina screamed. Her cloud expanded across the ceiling and began raining. Water struck the charged rail in silver drops. Fire path, Hazel called. Cal lifted 2 children and moved them toward the rear door. Deacon scooped sleeping Gus from the nest. Dr. Brackett took Bix and Mina, keeping both inside the marked safe lane. Tansy ran toward the play yard climbing platform instead. My frog, she cried. Frog Oren had slipped through the drainage gap beneath the rear door. He hopped across the wet yard and disappeared under the wooden platform. Tansy climbed after him. The lightning surge hit the outdoor canopy charm. Canvas snapped open above the yard, then twisted when one enchanted support failed. A steel crossbar tore loose. Hazel reached the rear threshold. Her magic struck the locked transformation boundary and rebounded, throwing her against the wall. Cal, he was already shifting. The bear tore through his visitor's shirt and filled the doorway with cinnamon brown fur. He hit the sealed boundary shoulder first. Lavender light wrapped his chest. Adult contact, verify purpose appeared in blazing letters. Cal roared. Rescue, Hazel shouted. The ward released. He charged into the yard as the crossbar fell. Tansy crouched on the platform, fox ears flat, one hand reaching beneath the rail toward Frog Oren. Cal rose on his hind legs. The steel struck his shoulder instead of the child. Pain flashed white. He held the bar, while Hazel reached the platform from the other side. Tansy, come to me. Oren's under there. Cal can smell him. You come first. Tansy hesitated. Maribel appeared at the side gate. She had circled the building instead of leaving. Tansy, she screamed. The child turned toward her mother's voice. Her foot slipped on the wet platform. Cal dropped to all fours, still holding the crossbar across one shoulder, and caught Tansy against his neck. Her fingers buried in his fur. Hazel climbed onto the platform and lifted her away. Dr. Brackett secured the fallen support with a silver rod. Deacon herded the other children beneath the stone awning, counting loudly. 5 human children, 1 frog child visible, 1 frog child under the structure, he called. Frog Netta sat on top of a cubby inside, croaking at the locked yard door. Cal lowered the steel bar when Brackett signaled. His shoulder burned. He pushed his nose beneath the platform and found orange scent beside a puddle. The small frog crouched between 2 support blocks. Cal could not reach him with a paw. Hazel lay flat in the rain, one hand extended into the gap. Orange cracker, she said. Deacon threw her the emergency snack bag. Why orange? Brackett asked. Personal preference persists across forms, Hazel said. She slid 1 cracker crumb into the gap. Frog Oren hopped onto her palm. Hazel cupped him against her chest. Only when both children were contained did Cal let himself become human. He knelt in the rain, shirtless and bleeding along one shoulder. Tansy broke away from Everett's sister, who had arrived through the alley, and threw both arms around him. Careful, Hazel said, but Cal wrapped his uninjured arm around Tansy. Dr. Brackett organized the aftermath with terrifying efficiency. She shut down the testing rod, isolated the broken canopy charm, and assigned Deacon to call June. Bix counted children from beneath the stone awning. 5 human, 2 amphibian, he announced. That totals 7, Deacon said. I included myself in human. Right, good. Please continue doing that. Mina's rain cloud shrank when Sonia arrived through the rear alley wearing 1 yellow rain boot and 1 red one. She carried blankets, the main first aid kit, and enough maternal authority to make even Dr. Brackett step aside. Who is bleeding? Sonia asked. Cal, 6 voices answered. Who is a frog? Netta and Oren, 5 voices answered. 1 small frog croaked in disagreement. Hazel wrapped each twin in a silver containment blanket. Frog Netta sat in Deacon's mixing bowl because the approved carrier had been left inside the sealed building. Frog Oren remained in Hazel's cupped hands, orange cracker crumbs stuck to his head. No one mistakes that for enrichment, Hazel said. Oren ate the crumb. Cal tried to stand. The yard tipped. Sonia pushed him back onto the wet paving stone. Large mammals also sit when instructed. I'm staff adjacent. You are bleeding adjacent. She cleaned the cut while Hazel checked Tansy's knees and pupils. The child had 1 scrape and no sign of concussion. Her fox ears remained visible, but they had stopped trembling. You caught me, she told Cal. That was the plan. You didn't have a plan. Hazel met his eyes. Cal managed a smile. Management has corrupted you. Tansy smiled back. Maribel lifted her recovered phone from outside the side gate. Look at that, she said to Dr. Brackett. He risks everything for her. Tell me that isn't a father. Cal stared at her over Tansy's head. The old instinct said hide. The new one said speak. Parents had gathered beyond the alley entrance. At least 2 phones were raised. Cal knew the bear rescue would be online before his shoulder stopped bleeding. This time, the thought did not hollow him out. Visibility could be misused. Invisibility had been misused too. He could control neither audience nor interpretation. He could control whether he surrendered the truth. It is childcare, he said. You should try seeing the child instead of the story. Maribel's face changed. Hazel stood beside him with Frog Orange safe in her hands. The inspection was not over. Neither, Cal realized, was anything else that mattered to him.
Chapter 19. Maribel did not wait for Cal's shoulder to be bandaged before trying to turn the rescue into evidence. He shifted for Tansy, she told Dr. Brackett. Again, you cannot call that ordinary childcare. Sonia pressed gauze to Cal's bleeding shoulder while Tansy leaned against his uninjured side. Hazel still held Frog Oren. Behind them, the deadlocked wards flashed lavender and blue. An extraordinary emergency did not make Maribel's interpretation true. Cal shifted because a steel bar was falling on a child, Hazel said. Any child's identity would have produced the same response. You can't know that. I watched him run into a fire for 6 children. I have better evidence than your interpretation. Dr. Brackett raised one hand. This is an active safety assessment. Miss Bell, remain outside the gate or leave. Maribel folded her arms. I have a right to protect my daughter. Then stop frightening her, Everett said. He entered through the alley with his attorney and Rowan in a stroller. His face changed when he saw the broken canopy, Cal's blood, and Tansy's muddy clothes. "Daddy!" Tansy ran to him. Everett dropped to his knees and held her. He checked her arms, face, and fox ears while she explained the rescue in one breath. Cal was a bear, and the sky fell, and Oren was a frog, and Mama yelled, and I slipped, but I didn't fall. Everett looked at Cal over her head. "Thank you." Cal nodded. Maribel pressed both hands to the side gate. "Everett, tell them how obsessed he was with having a family. No. Tell them he wanted children with me, before either of us betrayed him." Everett stood, keeping one hand on Tansy's shoulder. "Wanting a family years ago does not make him father to mine." His attorney opened a document case. "Dr. Brackett, I have the temporary access agreement, the preserved message containing the draft accusation, and the original daycare boundary notice. I can provide them for confidential review." "Thank you," Brackett said. "Bring them inside when the electrical hazard clears." Maribel's face lost color. "You brought my messages here?" "You brought this here," Everett said. The sentence left no room for poetry. Hazel turned away before Maribel's expression could become the center of the emergency. She checked the children again. Frog Netta had begun to glow beneath the silver blanket. Her outline stretched. Deacon lifted the mixing bowl away as she returned to human form, damp, furious, and naked. Sonia wrapped her in the blanket. "Frog rude," Netta announced. "You licked it," Hazel said. "Still rude." Frog Oren changed seconds later in Hazel's arms. His sudden human weight knocked her backward. Cal caught both of them with his good arm. For one unsteady moment, Hazel sat against his chest, holding a blanket-wrapped child, while Cal held them both. "Everyone contained?" he asked. Everyone contained. The orange cracker crumb was gone. "Snack?" he asked. "You ate evidence," Bix said. "Was cracker." Dr. Brackett looked toward the sky, as if seeking professional patience from a higher jurisdiction. June arrived at a run. She gathered both twins, checked every finger and toe, then looked at Hazel. "They licked frogs during inspection?" "Yes." "Both?" "Yes." June closed her eyes. Efficiency is not always progress. "Correct. How?" Hazel described the parcel hatch, the torn bag, and the testing habitat. June's head turned slowly toward Maribel. "You brought a live frog to a daycare where my children turn into things they taste?" "It was in Tansy's nature kit," Maribel said. Tansy looked up. "I don't have a nature kit." Maribel's mouth opened. "I only meant to prove their screening could fail," she said. "I thought the frog would stay in the box." "You introduced a living trigger to manufacture a safety incident," Dr. Brackett said. "The scale of the outcome does not reduce the intent." June pointed one finger through the gate. "I have spent 5 years explaining that living creatures are not mouth opportunities. You do not get to weaponize a frog because your romantic crisis lacks adult supervision." Deacon whispered to Hazel. She should conduct licensing inspections. She would close the town. Efficient. A woman detached herself from the parents gathered beyond the alley entrance. She wore jeans, a rain-darkened sweater, and the expression of someone whose day off had just been canceled by other people's choices. She held up a leather badge case. "Officer Ana Ortiz, Bellwether Municipal Watch. Off-duty, unfortunately." The little crowd lowered its phones. Ortiz looked first at Dr. Brackett. "Did I hear Miss Bell admit she sent a live frog through the daycare's parcel hatch to make the screening fail?" "You did," Brackett said. "The carrier, torn bag, and recorded ward alert are being preserved." Ortiz turned to Hazel, and she had already been directed to remain outside the property boundary. Repeatedly, Maribel gripped the gate. "This is a family disagreement." Ortiz's gaze did not shift. "A family disagreement does not become less reportable because you put it in a box." She stepped closer to June, careful not to crowd the twins in their silver blankets. "As their guardian, you can make a formal complaint and ask that this be referred for charges. The city attorney makes the final decision, but I need to ask what you want." June looked down at Netta and Oren. Both were human again. Both were safe. Tansy, still pressed against Everett's side, watched every adult face as if the wrong answer might break the ground a second time. "I don't want to press charges today," June said. "I do want a formal warning, written. I want it to state that she deliberately introduced a transformation trigger into a licensed daycare, endangered my children, and is not permitted on this property without written authorization." Ortiz nodded once. "Declining charges today does not erase the incident or prevent the evidence from being referred if the investigation supports it." A formal trespass and safety warning will be entered before I leave. Any repeat contact at the daycare can result in arrest and a new referral. Good, June said. Paper remembers better than people who want peace. Hazel met Ortiz's eyes. As the owner, I want the same restriction recorded. Ortiz took a small field notebook from her back pocket. Then I need brief statements from both of you after the children are settled. She faced Maribel at last. Ms. Bell, you are formally warned not to enter, approach, or send any person, animal, or object onto Abracadabra Daycare property without written authorization. Refusing to sign will be noted. It will not cancel the warning. Maribel's mouth tightened. I was trying to expose a dangerous system. You created the danger, Ortiz said. Now leave the boundary. Dr. Brackett instructed Everett's attorney to preserve the torn bag and frog carrier. Then they instructed Maribel to leave the property. If you remain, the inspector said, I will document interference with emergency operations and contact municipal wardens. Maribel looked at Everett. He did not move toward her. She left. The absence she created felt different from Cal's, less like a missing support, more like pressure releasing from a sealed room. Hazel did not mistake relief for resolution. The daycare still could not be entered. The wards had deadlocked after the lightning squirrel surge. Entry sealed against living threats. Transformation sealed against shifted children. Fire demanding evacuation from a building already empty. Lavender text crawled across the glass door. Conflict. Authorized adult required. That would be me, Hazel said. She approached. The entry ward scanned her and flashed red. Authorized adult status, disputed. By whom? The fire ward answered with a blue pulse. My own wards have formed a grievance committee. Management precedent, Bix said. Cal stood carefully. Sonia tried to push him back down. The ward grid is grounded through the canopy support, he said. When the bar tore loose, it broke the physical circuit. Hazel traced the copper path. He was right. The magical contradiction was not only logic. The ground itself was incomplete. I can bridge it, she said. With what? Dr. Brackett asked. Direct current through my focus. That surge threw you across the room once already. I will reduce the load. Cal touched the wooden bear charm still attached to the employee key on Hazel's belt. She had brought it without realizing. Share it, he said. Shifter bodies do not conduct structured magic safely. Bear bodies ground environmental magic. You wrote it in the proposed role. As theory. Today has been educational. Dr. Brackett examined his bandaged shoulder. If the current follows the injury, it may worsen tissue damage. Cal held out his uninjured hand. Then, route it here. Hazel looked at the children beneath the awning, the parents in the alley, and the daycare flashing behind glass. Her instinct demanded that she take sole responsibility. That instinct had become another hazard. Equal release authority, she said. Cal nodded. Either of us breaks contact, the spell ends. You tell me immediately if the bear pushes forward. You tell me immediately if your vision changes. No improvisation. Responsive adjustment. That is improvisation wearing a badge. Then give it a clipboard. Hazel laughed. The fear remained. It no longer occupied the entire space. They stood at the broken canopy anchor. Hazel drew the 3 ward symbols in the air. Entry, fire, transformation. Cal placed his palm against the exposed copper ground. Magic struck them both. Hazel's first instinct was to grip harder. Cal's was to pull the current away from her. Both stopped. Load? She asked. Heavy, stable, vision clear. She divided the spell. Instead of ordering 3 systems into obedience, she gave each one a fact. All enrolled children were accounted for. No shifted child remained loose. The structure was evacuated, and no fire burned. Cal's grounding strength carried each fact into the copper grid. The bear under his skin supplied warmth without taking control. Hazel's magic shaped it without claiming ownership. The blue fire pulse went dark. The lavender transformation text dissolved. The entry ward asked, Authorized adult. Hazel looked at Cal. 2, she answered. The glass door unlocked. The brass bell rang once. They released each other's hands at the same time. Dr. Brackett entered first with a testing rod. She checked residual current, air quality, and every ward seam before allowing anyone else inside. The children returned in a line. Gus asked whether breakfast was still available. Mina apologized to the floor for raining on it. The twins inspected the weather box for more frogs. Eyes only, June said. No frogs, Orrin reported. That is not disappointment, June replied. Everett's attorney provided the documents in Hazel's office. Dr. Brackett compared the preserved message, access agreement, and boundary notice against Hazel's incident chronology, then sealed the copies in a confidential envelope. The inspection record now treated Maribel's arrival as deliberate interference, not evidence of a custody conflict. Then Cal asked to speak. Parents gathered in the main room. Maribel was gone, but her story remained in their phones and expressions. Cal stood beside the reading nest with a fresh shirt Deacon had found in the emergency clothes cupboard. It said, "Tiny but mighty," and fit across only part of his chest. This was the largest option, Deacon said. It was Gus's backup. Text remains accurate. Cal faced the parents. Maribel and I dated years ago. She had an affair with Everett while we were together. I left when I learned the truth. She later married him, and they had Tansy and Rowan. I am not their father. I never believed I was. Everett stepped beside him. Everything Cal said is true. I helped Maribel betray him. Both children are mine, and I am sorry my silence helped her use them against him. Cal glanced at Everett. The apology did not create forgiveness. It placed truth where the lie had been. I hid when Maribel came to the daycare, Cal continued. That made her claims easier to believe. Hiding was my mistake. Abandoning children was not. Nobody asked for more. June began clapping. Soon, every parent did, except Gus's father, who was holding 3 coats and could only nod vigorously. Cal's face reddened above the tiny shirt. Hazel loved him so much it felt less like falling than finally standing on level ground. As the parents dispersed, Everett approached Cal near the cubbies. Hazel remained close enough to intervene and far enough to make the conversation theirs. I owe you more than the public version, Everett said. Cal glanced toward Tansy, who was drawing a bear with 6 legs beside Gus's earlier model. Not here. Outside? They stepped into the repaired section of yard. Dr. Brackett had declared the stone path safe, though the canopy remained braced by 2 silver rods and Deacon's bread delivery cart. I knew Maribel was with you when the affair began, Everett said. She told me you had agreed to separate. I believed that because I wanted to. When I found out she lied, I married her anyway and let the town keep blaming you because correcting it would have exposed what I did. Cal's jaw tightened. Yes. Everett swallowed. I was a coward. Yes. I am sorry. Cal looked through the glass at Tansy. You do not get forgiveness because today frightened you. I know. You get a chance to stop repeating it. Protect your children with the truth, not by keeping Maribel comfortable. Everett nodded. I will. And if she tells Tansy I am supposed to be her father again, I correct her, immediately, without making Tansy carry the correction. Good. They did not shake hands. Some bridges required inspection before reopening. When Cal came back inside, Hazel handed him a fresh ice pack. He accepted it without pretending his shoulder was fine. Personal growth, she said. Temporary weakness caused by tiny shirt. The words tiny but mighty had stretched until the final Y pointed toward his armpit. It is persuasive. Your desire has compromised your judgment. Previously documented. They smiled at each other, still tired, still bruised, and no longer mistaking repair for perfection. Dr. Brackett completed her inspection at 4:30. Before announcing the result, she interviewed each available adult separately. Sonia admitted the old nursery fire, her unapproved puppets, and her role in emergency coverage. Deacon admitted the pastries had not been allergen labeled during the canopy failure. They were emergency pastries, he argued. Allergens remain active during emergencies, Brackett said. He wrote labels. June described the twins' oral contact magic in terms so specific they would have embarrassed a research committee. Hazel supplied the full progression. Caterpillar, ladybug, spider, frog. Frog remained the absolute largest viable form. Attempts involving larger creatures failed, and objects had never produced a shift. Today's breach did not change the magical limit, Hazel said. It exposed a physical entry flaw. And a ward classification flaw, Brackett said. Yes, the cuffs responded to adult contact while ignoring child contact. Correction? Age-neutral intent detection. Mouth proximity triggers a gentle spatial barrier around the living organism, not the child. No restraint of bodies, Cal added, and physical barriers remain primary. Magic is backup. Hazel did not bristle at the correction. Agreed. Brackett wrote for a full minute. Expanded certification is approved, contingent on one correction, she said. Hazel braced herself. The parcel hatch must reject unregistered living organisms before physical entry, not after ward scanning. I can install a life sign sieve, with a manual override accessible to 2 safety authorities. Hazel looked at Cal. He did not look away. Yes, she said. After pickup, she placed the written co-safety director agreement on the art table. The role included equal emergency authority, paid training, health coverage, and a salary 20% higher than his assistant wage. This is not contingent on romance, Hazel said. It is not gratitude for the rescue. It is the authority the work requires, offered because you are qualified. Cal read every page. And Portland? She asked. Interview Monday. Her heart dipped. She let it. You should go if you want it. I don't. He turned to the salary page. But I needed to know I could. Can you? Yes. Then choose. Cal picked up the employee key. I choose this. Hazel exhaled. And us? He asked. I choose you, without authority, contingencies, or a clause requiring you to choose me back. He crossed the distance between them. The kiss was not careful because care had stopped meaning fear. Hazel gripped his good shoulder. Cal lifted her onto the edge of the art table, avoiding 3 glue sticks and the honest inspection file. Consent to workplace fraternization, he murmured. Daycare is closed. Management redirect. Approved. The brass bell rang by itself. They broke apart. On Hazel's desk, the main binder had opened to a blank divider. Glittering letters wrote themselves across the tab. Things no binder predicted. Cal looked at Hazel. The daycare approves. The daycare has no authority over my personal life. The bell rang again. Hazel kissed him anyway. Later, after Deacon removed the bread cart, and June removed both children under one arm each, Cal signed the employment agreement. Hazel signed beneath him. Neither signature touched the other. Cal clipped the key to his belt. When do I start? Monday. Tomorrow the daycare is closed for repair. What are we doing tomorrow? Hazel looked at his bandaged shoulder. Resting. Is that an order from management? A romantic proposal. Needs work. Dinner. No incident forms, no discussion of wards for 2 consecutive hours. Now it sounds dangerous. She took his hand. Carefully dangerous. He squeezed hers. I accept. Chapter 20. On the morning of Abracadabra's expanded certification anniversary, Hazel woke with a bear shifter's arm across her waist and a daycare spoon under her pillow. She removed the spoon and held it up. Explain. Cal opened one eye. Good morning. This is from the blue toddler set. Clover put it in my coat. Your coat was downstairs. She is resourceful. It was under my head. You are also resourceful. Hazel set the spoon on the nightstand. This conversation has failed. He spent most nights at her house, but still paid rent on the apartment with 3 boxes, 1 chair, and the visual warmth of an unbuttered potato. His toothbrush lived beside hers. His work boots lived by the door. His kettle had appeared in her kitchen without either of them discussing it. The arrangement worked perfectly, except for the part where Hazel wanted it named. You are thinking loudly, he murmured. Witches do not broadcast thoughts. Your left foot taps when you are designing policy. Hazel stilled it beneath the quilt. Cal kissed the crescent scar on her thumb. The gesture retained its power, even after months of familiarity. Trust had not become less precious because it was no longer new. Anniversary inspection, she said. We pass. Confidence is not preparation. We prepared. You alphabetized the incident tabs. They were chronological. Even worse. She rolled toward him. His shoulder scar had faded to a narrow pink line. Hazel traced it with one fingertip, and Cal's expression warmed. Morning desire unfolded without urgency. He asked whether they had time. Hazel checked the clock, mentally reviewed the opening schedule, and said yes, without inventing a reason it was practical. They were late by 4 minutes. Deacon saw them enter together and handed Hazel a coffee labeled Fraternization Fuel. We encountered traffic, she said. You walked 3 blocks. Pedestrian traffic. Cal took the coffee. Management is not accepting questions. Hazel should have objected. She kissed his cheek instead. By then, Abracadabra Daycare had 2 directors, 12 children, and a parcel hatch that rejected a bouquet because 1 flower contained an aphid. Hazel regarded the flashing red message above the hatch. Living organism, registration required. Outside, Deacon held the bouquet at arm's length. The aphid is not enrolling. It has not completed an emergency contact form. It is an aphid. Then its handwriting will be distinctive. Cal leaned over Hazel's shoulder. Manual review. Non-transformative organism. Contained on plant matter. Adult custody verified. The aphid has no custody documentation. Deacon admits possession. Under protest, Deacon said through the glass. Hazel released the hatch. Deacon entered with the flowers and a white bakery box. Happy expanded certification anniversary, he said. The daycare had grown into the vacant tailor's shop next door. A wide arch connected the rooms beneath a reinforced copper lintel. The original space held toddlers and transformation risk play. The new room contained art tables, a quiet library, and a warded indoor garden where living creatures remained behind clear barriers and beyond licking distance. A sign above the habitat read, "Look with your eyes." Beneath it, someone had added, "No lick, no crime," in purple crayon. Hazel knew the handwriting. She had left it because historical artifacts mattered. Cal had argued it encouraged legalism. Bix had argued legalism encouraged literacy. Nobody had won. Flowers go in the office, Hazel told Deacon. Food labels face outward. Aphid remains under observation. Romance flourishes here. Cal took the bouquet. That's practically a declaration. He kissed Hazel's temple while carrying the flowers away. Public affection around children remained prohibited. Affection above eyebrow level had been classified as collegial after a contentious staff meeting attended only by the two of them. Fraternizing, Bix called from the reading nest. You graduated from this daycare in June, Hazel said. Why are you here? Consulting. His grandmother waved from the sign-in desk. The elementary school has a teacher workday, and no adequate grievance procedure, Bix added. Cal handed him the attendance slate. Audit head count. Bix accepted the responsibility and forgot to comment on romance for almost 4 minutes. Netta and Oren sat at the art table making frogs from paper plates. Their transformation record had improved dramatically. Neither had made live oral contact in 93 days. June measured success in weeks now. The twins still tested inanimate objects whenever adults looked distracted. Oren licked a green pom-pom. Inanimate, Hazel said without turning. Checking. The physical laws remained stable since breakfast. Netta licked the paper frog. Also inanimate. Could have changed. It did not. Their magic retained its peculiar rules. Living contact only. Tiny creatures only. Caterpillars, ladybugs, spiders, and frogs. Frog remained the absolute ceiling, despite Oren's determined attempt to taste a miniature horse at the spring fair. He had acquired a mouthful of mane and no transformation. Hazel had acquired 6 new gray hairs. Cal claimed they were silver and distinguished. Hazel claimed his pillow could distinguish him from the bed if he continued. He had continued. Most nights the pillow remained beside hers. At 10, Dr. Brackett arrived for the anniversary review. They brought no frog. Hazel checked. Your pockets? She asked. The inspector held out both arms. Would you like to search me? No. She thought about it, Cal said. Trust has limits. Dr. Brackett inspected the parcel hatch, the shared authority controls, and the new indoor garden. They reviewed 6 months of records. The thickest section was titled, Things No Binder Predicted. Entries included, a Thunderbird toddler sneezed and magnetized every spoon. Gus swallowed his first lost tooth before the tooth fairy could verify collection. A Selkie child removed her emergency seal coat and traded it for Bix's red cup. The cleaning sprites unionized formally and now received shortbread on alternate Wednesdays. Cal and Hazel disagreed over a nap policy, completed the 2-person review, and discovered both had misread the same sentence. Dr. Brackett paused at the last entry. Why document this? Because process succeeding is as relevant as process failing, Hazel said. Also because she was wrong, Cal said. We were both wrong. I was differently wrong. That phrase has no administrative meaning. It has emotional meaning. Dr. Brackett closed the binder. Your partnership appears functional. High praise, Cal said. Do not become accustomed to it. The inspector renewed certification without conditions. The parent committee had prepared a celebration in the play yard. Silver streamers hung beneath the fully repaired canopy. The replacement steel support was grounded through 2 independent copper paths, each labeled in Hazel's handwriting and approved in Cal's. June brought cupcakes decorated with tiny fondant frogs. Is this wise? Hazel asked. They are inanimate, June said. Netta licked one. Buttercream, she reported. Oren licked another. Also. Scientific replication, Cal said. Hazel added napkins to the table. Do not encourage publication. Sonia arrived carrying the felt dragon and a clipboard. She now volunteered one afternoon a month under a written activity plan. The dragon had completed a puppet safety orientation and wore a miniature identification badge. "We respect structure," Sonia said in its gravelly voice. "You also remain inside the approved performance square," Hazel told the puppet. The dragon looked down at the silver tape around Sonia's feet. "Management fears art. Management fears trip hazards." Sonia smiled. Their relationship had not become simple. It had become honest. They ate dinner twice a month. Sometimes they discussed the old nursery. Sometimes Sonia listened without explaining. Sometimes Hazel left angry and returned later because boundaries could contain love without ending it. Today, Sonia handed her a flat-wrapped package. Inside was the original roster from the nursery fire, restored beneath protective glass. Beside 14-year-old Hazel's smudged checkmarks, Sonia had added a small brass plaque. She counted everyone. Hazel's throat closed. "That should have been my job," Sonia said. "I cannot change that you did it. I can stop treating it like a charming story about how responsible you were." Hazel held the frame against her chest. "Thank you. You do not have to hang it. I know." She would hang it in the office, not as proof that vigilance prevented every failure, but as proof that care deserved support. Deacon rang a spoon against a juice glass. Every adult looked toward the twins. "My spoon," he said quickly. No one transformed. He toasted Hazel, Cal, and the daycare. June toasted 93 lick-free days. Bix toasted effective advocacy and attempted to distribute business cards. Mina's celebratory cloud released silver mist that made everyone smell faintly like peppermint. Gus ate 2 cupcakes and fell asleep beneath the picnic table. Cal stood beside Hazel with one hand at the small of her back. 6 months earlier, the same yard had held fire, spiders, accusation, and a falling steel bar. Now children ran beneath a safe canopy, while adults shared responsibility for watching them. Hazel did not scan every exit. She scanned most of them. Progress was measurable. Hazel did not frame the document until after lunch. Cal caught her aligning it between Bix's paper crown and Gus's 6-legged bear. "Custodian behavior?" he asked. "Directors preserve records. You own the building now." That remained new. Hazel had purchased the original daycare and neighboring shop with a cooperative loan backed by 3 parent families and Deacon, who insisted his investment entitled him to name one hallway. The North Passage was legally recorded on the plans as Croissant Corridor. "Ownership is not wanting," she said. "No, it is responsibility with property tax." Cal wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You wanted it." Hazel leaned back against him. "Yes." Outside the office, a timer chimed. Cal released her and went to supervise Snack. His shoulder had healed with a narrow scar. He still attended physical therapy once a month, and no longer treated pain as a private character test. The Portland foreman had hired someone else. Cal sent him Deacon's number after learning the crew needed event catering. 3 construction workers now drove 2 hours for objection éclairs. Merida lived in the next county. The formal daycare trespass and safety warning remained active. The court had approved shared custody with supervised transitions and a parenting communication service. She attended counseling. Hazel knew this only because the daycare required current orders. She did not monitor Maribel's redemption as if it belonged to anyone else. Tansy and Rowan remained enrolled. Everett handled drop-off. His relationship with Cal had settled into careful civility. They spoke about the children, weather, and occasionally lumber prices. It was not friendship yet. Neither man rushed to name what honest repetition might eventually build. On that anniversary morning, Everett arrived with Tansy and Rowan and a stack of fox-shaped pancakes in a warming carrier. "Triangle ears?" Cal asked. "Improving," Everett said. Tansy opened the carrier. One pancake ear was round. "He's trying." "Recognize paternal credential," Cal said. Everett met his gaze. "Thank you." This time the gratitude covered more than rescue. Cal nodded. Tansy ran to the art table. Rowan, now 3, followed with a stuffed fox clamped in his teeth. Hazel intercepted. "Stuffed animals are inanimate." Rowan stared at her. "That statement is mostly for the twins." Netta looked offended. "We know." Oren had a pom-pom in his mouth again. After quiet time, when the celebration had emptied and the new rooms had settled into their gentler afternoon hush, Hazel found Cal installing a low shelf in the library. He wore a tool belt over his daycare shirt, combining both halves of his working life. "The shelf is level," she said. "Romantic due diligence? Professional observation. You brought the small silver shoes." Hazel looked down at the pair in her hand. They were not shoes. They were tiny charms shaped like boots, each no larger than a thumbnail. One contained a home entry ward. The other contained a spare key to her house. She had rehearsed 4 speeches. One discussed practical commuting. One discussed duplicated rent. One contained an argument about ward compatibility that would have made a bank contract feel sensual. Cal set down the level. "Hazel," she held out the charms. "Move in with me." His face changed slowly, warmth reaching every guarded place. "Because my apartment looks like an unbuttered potato? That is supporting evidence. Because the daycare is closer? Also relevant. Because you love me. Because I love you. Because I want breakfast and schedules and choices made in daylight. Because my house feels like ours when you are there and empty when you are not." Cal took the charms. "Any workplace contingency? If our relationship ends, your employment protections remain. Love does not invalidate labor law." "Good." He closed his hand around the keys. "Because I'm saying yes." He kissed her between the new shelf and the illustrated bestiary section. The shelf remained level. The bestiary did not. 3 books fell. One opened to shapeshifting, unusual catalysts. Cal glanced at the page. "Do not let the twins see that." Agreed. From the main room came the opening music of the nature documentary June had approved for afternoon viewing. It featured moths, butterflies, and absolutely no live specimens. Hazel returned the book to the shelf and followed Cal out. The children sat on floor cushions facing the screen. A Luna moth filled the image, pale green wings opening in moonlight. "Pretty," Mina whispered. "Inanimate image," Hazel reminded the twins. "No," Netta said. "No work," Oren agreed. They leaned toward the screen together. Hazel saw both tongues extend. "Do not lick the—" Green light flashed. 2 piles of clothes collapsed onto the cushions. 2 tiny Luna moths fluttered in front of the screen. The room went silent. Hazel stared. Cal stared. Dr. Brackett, halfway through the front door, slowly reopened their folio. "Inanimate objects do not work," Hazel said. One moth landed on Cal's nose. The other flew directly into the things no binder predicted divider. Glittering letters added a new line by themselves. "Documentaries, pending review." Cal cupped the moth from his nose without damaging its wings. "Frog is still bigger." Hazel looked at the children, the inspector, the horrified parent faces, and the binder that had developed a sense of humor. Then she laughed. "Nobody swap my students," she said. Every adult froze with hands visible. Cal grinned at her across the fluttering room, her spare key warm in his pocket. The next impossible thing had arrived. This time, they would handle it together. Thank you for listening to Hexes, Exes, and Daycare Disasters. Please like and subscribe for more free audiobooks by Wynn Valentine. If you enjoyed Hazel, Cal, and all the magical daycare chaos, leave a comment and tell us your favorite disaster. More stories are coming soon.